One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Neon Green Xbox One controller podcast.
And that's not next to you right now, is it?
It is. It's right in front of me.
Ah,
It is.
I
It
couldn't
is.
have guessed.
Today, I have Brandon here with me, as usual for
Yeah,
this show. Brandon, how we
that
doing?
is me. I'm doing all right. Doing pretty good. Saw a movie.
We did. We just
So
watched a movie. We're about to talk about it. Before we do, though, I want to
mhm.
ask you something because I've been thinking about this for myself as of late.
that's that's always
Now,
good.
for most of my life up until about 3 years ago, I played games on console almost exclusively. Like I played some PC stuff here and there, but I never really had like a good computer to really be into PC gaming like that.
Yeah, me
And
too.
over the years that I've been on PC, these last few, I've been having a harder time distinguishing what I should play with controller versus mouse and key, and I almost feel
Mm.
guilty using a controller in some of these cases. Now, I think for me, it drastically depends on the type of game. For instance, like shooters, I can't even play on controller anymore for the most part.
It's hard, isn't
It
it?
is. I
I
feel
tried to go back. I tried to go back, and I was like, dude, I can't fucking do this with my thumb. I was like,
Eh,
there's no way.
it's like you're not as quick anymore. Like your thumbs used
Yeah,
to be so like rapid and just like you could hyper
it's.
react to anything, and now I feel like a fucking grandma on the controller, grandma on the
I'm
sticks.
about to say I feel like anyone that just picked up a controller for the first time and they're just like you see them move and then they have to stop and then move the camera, then they move.
They
I'm
have
like,
to
all
look
right,
at the
bro.
controller as they're computing.
Yeah, it's I remember I think it's a game I got some game when I was deployed and I used a controller to try to play it because it's harder to have something to bear down on when you're in a bunk bed. Um, and I was trying to use a controller. And I could not kill anything. I think I was trying to play Doom. It was Doom 1 I tried to play with the controller, and I was like, oh yeah, no, there's no
You
way.
talking about
I'm
Doom
not
one
do-
like the original Doom
Oh,
or
I'm
like
sorry, the
2016?
Doom Eternal,
Okay.
the
Oh, the
new
newest ones.
the
Okay.
start of yeah, um, yeah, on the like coming up the franchise or the reboot. And yeah, I tried to play it and I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
I can't.
Doom's definitely a mouse and key game, 1000%.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I played 2016 on both because I played Doom 2016 on console before I started playing PC, and I remember playing it on PC again right around the time Eternal came out, and holy hell, the
Yeah.
difference is astonishing. But
The
my,
only I was gonna say the only game I'm probably gonna play now on controller is GTA 6. That's probably the only game
yeah, see,
I can see myself playing.
I don't know. I would probably play GTA on mouse and key, honestly.
I don't know the driving
Oh yeah,
and
that's true. That's a
and
good
it's
point.
there.
That's a good
I
point.
think yeah, there's a lot of things about that. Like I think even the shooting, it just feels better to hold the left trigger and then hit him with the right. Like
Because my thing
besides,
is, it's weird. Because like with third persons, where it gets shaky for me on
that's
mouse
what
and
I was
key.
gonna say. I was
Other
gonna be like,
than
yeah,
other than if it's just a straight third person shooter, I think it controls beautifully. Like I played through the original Gears of War on mouse and keyboard, and it was great. Felt better than on
I
controller even.
was gonna say like right now I'm playing Resident Evil 4 that came out on Steam and
Oh man,
it feels fantastic on
yeah,
mouse and key.
yeah.
So
So
I love it.
but I think yeah, I think it just because like I'm playing Assassin's Creed Origins, and I'm just like, there's no fucking way I'm playing
Ooh
this on
yeah,
mouse and key. Like
that's a
there's
game
no
for that's
shot.
not a game for mouse and key at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Pretty far in it.
Those
I think I'm level I think like 38. I think the level cap's 40. I think I'm like 35 hours in and like 66% of the way through the whole map. So,
which Assassin's Creed?
Origins.
Ah,
That's the
I
Egypt
know.
one. That's the first one of the new
Mhm.
RPG type. Cuz I wanted to hop in and see what that was about cuz I don't like Assassin's Creed, but I do like open world action RPGs. And
You're a
Origins
better
is pretty
man than
good.
me.
Origins is pretty
I
good. Not gonna lie. I'm enjoying it.
yeah. That's at least that's the whole point of gaming, I
Mhm.
guess.
Mhm.
But I don't think I could sit down and finish that whole game.
It's big. And I know Odyssey and Valhalla
Yeah.
are apparently way bigger, like way bigger.
Valhalla is
So
for me was very boring, but
yeah, we'll
yeah.
see when I get to that one what I think of it. I haven't heard the best of things.
Yeah, Valhalla I that's the first one I played.
Mm. Yeah, that might have been a mistake maybe. That way, that's the first
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed you played, or just of the new
No, no,
RPGs.
no, no, no. The newer of the RPGs. I played through all the other ones.
Yeah, I did too, begrudgingly,
Yeah, yeah.
against my own will. It felt like I don't even know why I played. I mean, I didn't finish like half of them because I just got mad. I hated every like AC3 was the one that really pissed me off. That was the one that sent me over the edge, and I just couldn't do
That
it
was the
anymore.
one who was like the revolutionary.
Yeah, American Revolution.
War? Yeah.
Yeah, I got so
I
fed up with that game, I just put it down. But I beat see like the Ezio trilogy games I beat only because I was really into the stories. I just hated playing them.
Nice.
But I was into the story. I like
Yeah.
Ezio and even Altair and how they tie up in Revelations. But yeah, I think overall that type of, I guess, the OG Assassin's Creed style of game really is not for me. I've come to that conclusion. But it
Yeah,
is what it is.
it's a niche. I know people. I'll ask them like, "What's your favorite game?" They're like, "Oh, the Assassin's
Oh,
Creed."
people love Assassin's
I'm
Creed.
like,
People
okay.
love Assassin's Creed. I don't really know why. I don't know. I don't know if you know. I don't think I've told you yet. But me and Joey, it should be up on the YouTube channel today or tomorrow. But me and Joey did we're doing five most overrated and five most underrated games.
Mm,
And for overrated, I had Assassin's Creed 2 on there.
it's yeah, it's just pretty. It's up there
But
for overrated.
nevertheless, this is not a gaming podcast, believe it or not. This is a movie centered one so far. We haven't had any deviation. We've been strictly on movies so far,
Hmm.
but I suppose that's okay. Hopefully, we'll be able to branch out later on. Now, today, Brandon, we're talking about very, very acclaimed, very, very respected movie, more contemporary one than any of the ones that we've talked about in the past. Of course, we're talking about 2018 animated movie Into the Spider-Verse.
Hmm.
So
Indeed.
the facts on this were interesting. There's three directors or three credited directors on this movie. And
Okay.
one of them, I think it was, yeah, Rodney Rothman, does not really have any real credits with directing or even being that big involved in the industry. Peter Ramsey directed Rise of the Guardians. That was a DreamWorks movie. I don't remember specifically what years, early 2010s. And then, I'm sorry if I butcher this, but Bob Perschetti, he did some storyboard work for some of the old DreamWorks movies, Shrek 2 and Wallace and Gromit. Curse of the Were
Okay.
Rabbit are the two that he specifically, or I guess the ones that were well acclaimed. So definitely some talent here. A lot of DreamWorks bloodline in here, which I thought was quite interesting. This was, of course, distributed by Sony Pictures, also known for movies like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the horrendously bad Emoji Movie, Hotel Transylvania, the Angry Birds movies, etc. Now this is
Hmm.
interesting. I don't want to get too far in yet, and get
Yeah,
too
yeah, yeah.
many steps ahead, but I do want to say it's interesting that this came out of Sony Pictures, given their history and their
I mean,
track record. It's
when we
very
walked into
interesting.
it, we walked into it for the first time. We both. I'm pretty sure we both were like, okay, well, it's another fucking Spider-Man movie that
Yeah,
we're walking into,
right.
and we're just gonna sit through it. And it, I was like, I just want to at least enjoy it at this rate.
Right.
I was like, I was not
Yeah. I was
expecting
expecting it to
anything.
be very studio, especially with all the
Yeah.
music and everything, a Post Malone song. I was like, oh God, here we go. Uh, So the plans for an animated Spider-Man film by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, of course, the two writers on this movie, also known for the likes of the Lego Movie, which was fucking phenomenal. The original, of course.
Hmm. Hmm.
It leaked in 2014, which was, I believe, also that was the year that Lego Movie came out, and then it was announced in April of 2015. They intended to have a non-traditional style with traditional hand-drawn comic book techniques combined with computer animation. So it's a little bit of mix of both, some like old school Disney style drawn animation, but also some computer animated stuff in there as well. Required up to 140 animators, the most for a Sony animated release up until this point. Now I don't know if any movie has surpassed it since. I only know that up until this point, it had more animators than any other
2018.
movies by that distributor. Um, Grossed 384 million worldwide with a 90 million budget, so definitely made its money back and a lot.
They should made over 300 mil. Only spent 90
Yep.
roughly. So you did 2 for 1
And that's
ish
just
or three
box
for one
office. I'm sure this movie
roughly.
has brought in crazy numbers in terms of merchandising and
Oh, yeah,
stream
this
and streaming
movie
service. I mean,
after a couple weeks of it coming out, oh yeah, no, it went crazy. I'm pretty sure. Just
uh,
even like buying it, and let alone probably
um, film won Best Animated Feature at the 91st Academy Awards, beating out Ralph Breaks the Internet, which had no business being there. Isle of Dogs, Incredibles 2, which also had no business being there,
wow.
and Mirai.
I don't know. Isle of Dogs. We'll talk about that one probably one day
Yeah,
as well.
for sure,
But
for sure. Isle of Dogs, I think,
I,
is the only probably notable one that I guess maybe
yeah,
could have
that's
hit
why
it, but
I
even
was
then,
like,
I
wow.
don't think so. I think the winner was clear
Yeah,
with this.
I think it was very clear. Even though I do like the animation style that Isle of Dogs also takes, but again,
Very different movies
this
too.
yeah. But we'll get into the animation style of
Of
this one
course,
as
of
well.
course, of course. Two sequels were announced: Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, to release in June 2023 and March 2024, respectively. In fact, Across the Spider-Verse comes out next week. So the plan is to do that next week for next week's show. Now I think the way that we're gonna do it is it's not gonna count on either of our turns necessarily, so it'll just go back to Brandon's turn the following week for his
Yeah,
pick. But just for new releases and such that we feel should be covered. But yeah, we'll definitely cover that next week. Excited for that, of course. And then I wanted to say here too. So I guess I never really thought about it because time feels so just completely out of whack at this point that I almost can't believe that this movie is damn near 6 years old. That's incredible.
yeah, yeah.
And I think it was interesting to me because I knew the sequel was coming. I think it got announced very early on. The
That's
first
actually
the first
crazy.
yeah,
That
exactly,
the
because
sequel's just now
the
coming
first
out.
one. Now my assumption is that COVID had something to do with it and it changed
Oh
how they
yeah,
wanted to do it, because the interesting thing about this, though, what I just read, is that the sequel is supposed to come out not even a year from from next week when the second one comes out. So
you
my
talking about
assumption is,
the
yeah,
you
the
talking
third
about the
one.
third one? Is it supposed? Okay,
So my assumption is that they just kind of stripped both of them back and said we're just gonna kind of get both of these done and then just rapid fire, kind of
yeah.
Matrix
I mean,
style 2 and 3. Which, like I said, I mean, they've had plenty of time, so I think, as long as the quality holds up, I think that'll be fine. But I just thought that was interesting, and of course, who knows? I mean, the third one could get delayed, but who knows?
yeah.
Time will tell. Um, The movie was scored by, again, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Daniel Pemberton. He is notorious for, he has some very, very oddball. I was looking at it because I wasn't too familiar with his work, but I was looking at some of the scores he did. He did some Guy Ritchie movies: Man from Uncle, King Arthur, the 2017 one. He also did Birds of Prey, the Bad
Mm-hmm.
Guys animated movie that came out last year, I believe. Um, so he did the score there. And then I think for the notes, I think that's it. I don't think I really have anything else here, so we can go ahead and get right into thoughts. Brandon, I want to know, watching this movie
Mm-hmm.
again. First of all, just give me the experience the first time you watched it, and just and how many times you've seen it, and I guess how your impressions
Um.
have grown after watching
So
it again today.
first viewing, was probably the most like a good breath of fresh air for sure. Of just not expecting something and then walking out of it going, "Holy shit! I don't know what to feel at this point about this movie." Because I was not writing this off as going to even be touching nowhere near even the top five of Spider-Man movies, but I'll I'll say where I put it now when it comes to every single Spider-Man movie later. But yeah, so I walked out of there like that. I probably saw it. I'd say one, two. I probably saw it like four more times after this. So now I've seen it six times now at this rate. Um, that's it. I've
Wow.
seen it a decent bit. Um, so yeah, yeah. What about you? How many times have you seen it?
So I think I've seen this. This could be accurate. I'm trying to remember. I want to say that this is my third time seeing this,
Okay.
because I know I saw it in theaters. See, that's what I can't remember, if I saw it once or twice in theaters. That's where it could be for, but I'm gonna say, because I know I saw it once in theaters. I know I saw it once when it was on Netflix for that long period, and I saw it again, of course, just now. But yeah, I think this is my third time watching it.
I just knew a decent amount of people that have never seen it, so I was like, "Bruh, what are you doing?" And it was
Yeah,
on
that's fair.
Netflix, so it's literally just right there. I was like, "All right, yeah, we're watching this." So yeah, I
It's
was
a
like,
safe
That's
movie
why
to
I've seen
show
it."
somebody. I don't know. We'll get into it when we talk about other people's reviews, but I don't know what you could objectively say negatively about this.
I saw a review that what I will tell you that like it's not I want to say dumb, but again at the same time it's like if it's not for you then this is not for you,
Right.
I guess.
I guess, yeah.
uh, but yeah, I mean that's the only thing I can say about it when it comes to being negative or someone having you know less feelings than others about it.
So,
But
if I may, I have quite
mm,
a bit to say about this movie. I was paying close attention, really trying
I
to grasp it and to really understand it. And I gotta say, I think this movie is almost too special to be seen as special the first time you watch it. And what I mean by that is it seems like every time I've watched this movie now for the third time, I appreciate it and notice and
A
understand
little
it
bit more.
more and more each time. And
Oh yeah.
what I realized this time watching was a couple things. One, everything in this movie, and I mean everything from the animation to the story to the writing to the music, for the most part, I'll get to that later,
Music.
to everything is purposeful. It's precise. Like
Yes.
there is like it moves. Like there is no filler. There is no questionable scenes or does this need to be here? None of that. It is all so intentional in what it's doing, and it's one of those movies that almost while you're watching it doesn't even allow you to criticize it. It's like, no, this is what we're showing you. Fuck your preconceived
Mm-hmm.
notions, fuck what you're expecting. This is what we're giving you. And it almost just forces you into that world. And one thing that I noticed this time, and I wonder if you have any thoughts or feelings about this, but because I think what makes this movie great is what objectively makes all other movies great. The story's great. It looks great. It sounds great. The writing
Mm-hmm.
is great. It has all of those core principles that movies need in order to be seen as great. But what I think makes it special and just a note above even great is, and I was looking for the word, like flow wasn't really it, but I found it. And the word is tempo.
Okay.
Now I think this movie, in terms of the timing of it, the precision of it, it's so fucking calculated, and it is also never predictable nor consistent, and in turns makes it constantly exciting. The speed of
Mm-hmm.
this movie is interesting. They speed it up, they slow it down. They speed it up, they slow it down. And it just that it's so it embellishes a comic book so perfectly in a way that I don't think any other movie has ever done. In terms of like putting what a comic book like to the core to the screen in a movie sense that makes the most sense and works the most for a movie, I don't think that there is a better example than this, because the way that it moves, the way that it's paced, the tempo of it, it all just it flows so well, and it's so purposeful, and it's one of a kind, all in the same. And it's like, damn, like they really made something, again, I'm not trying to reiterate too much, but special.
Right.
And it does things that other movies just quite simply don't do, even great ones. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want, because I almost feel like some of these movies, they get so much acclaim and you're so used to hearing how great they are that in your head it almost like fizzles out in a way, and the
Yeah.
reception kind of fizzles out as well. And like I just want to be the one that's like, no, like we didn't jump the shark on this movie. Like this movie really is as good as we were saying it was then, if not even better now.
Than it was. Yeah. Now.
And 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 I want to get into my only complaint, because I have one issue with this movie. It comes down to one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that takes me out, the only thing that, again, I would change, and maybe this is just personal, but I really don't think so. Because let me explain the soundtrack. Now, there's some
Wow.
there's some uses of the soundtrack in this that I love. For instance, my favorite one is probably the "What's Up Danger"
What's Up Danger is really good.
and that leap of faith. That's one of
The
the
Leap of
best
Faith is
scenes in the
really good.
movie
That's
for sure.
I personally
Love
that's
that.
I think that's I'll get into that scene
Yeah,
later.
yeah. I
I'll
mean,
talk about my
it's perfection. It's fucking perfection.
I'll talk to that scene later.
But hearing Juice World right after like an emotional thing has happened and I'm invested in the movie, it just takes me out of it. And it's hard to explain, and it's like I don't it's not so much necessarily the music not matching up with the tone or what it's just the fact that it doesn't belong here, because I don't want to connect Spider-Man and Juice World. I feel like I'm in a different world. Like I don't want to be. It just didn't seem appropriate, and it
Okay.
takes me
But
out
so
of
hold
it. And I
on.
feel the same way. And this one's more so because I also just really don't like the song. But Sunflower is
Sunflower.
another
Okay, I
one.
was about to
I'm
say
just
it'd be the
like,
same exact thing. Where like, why would I want to think about Post Malone in this
exactly
spot?
correct.
But that, I mean, well, one of the like things about this movie where I talk about the amount of detail they kind of put into it was with Sunflower. I think Sunflower was a, I mean, I think it's obviously a branding choice, but how they did it with Miles, I think worked very well when it comes to he's a teenager, he's going to listen to popular songs, but he doesn't even know the song completely by him
Right,
mumbling the
yeah,
words.
he's like kind of
Um,
incomplete
yeah,
going through it,
he's
yeah.
exactly, and I think it's great. I think he's and also kind of it's a lighthearted song. You
And
see him
it's
like kind of
establishing. It didn't bother me as much as the Juice World one did, honestly. But
I I don't know. I didn't have a problem with
luckily,
any
the
of.
movie brings you right back in right after the whole Juice World bit, because
Yeah,
that's a
like they
smooth
don't play the
song.
songs long. Even with they played a I forget which song it was, right when he gets picked up in the cop car. But like they play like a really small clip of a song,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
I know what you're
and
talking
it's
about.
just them driving and talking again. And I thought that was really good too. I think that them doing that, it's like not having those long drawn
Right,
out
but that's
parts.
what, because it feels like it fits. Like you're
Yeah,
not questioning. Like you're like, wait a minute. Like, but when I hear Juice World, I am. I'm like, yo,
yeah,
wait,
but
hold on.
Hyde was a is a
Yeah, it's made
that
for the
that
movie.
song. Yeah, but it fits in that spot of the movie too.
I don't know. It takes me out of it.
So if
I
it
would feel
wasn't
so
Juice
much
WRLD,
better. I would feel so much better if this movie just used more of its score. That's great, instead of putting licensed songs in.
okay.
I mean,
Well,
that's just me. But
yeah.
again, it might be a personal thing, but it does irk me, and I do wish they kind of toned it down a little bit. But again,
Yeah.
that we're getting really nitpicky here because I think everything else,
Do
like
you
I
like
said,
that song by
is
itself?
exceptional. Which one?
Hyde.
It's okay.
But you
I've heard
okay.
better Juice songs. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, obviously we've
yeah,
all heard better
exactly.
Juice
I
WRLD.
mean, it's fine. I wouldn't
I'm saying
listen
like
to it
I
on my own, no.
because like I like the soundtrack. Like I just I can enjoy the soundtrack.
I enjoy it. Or I enjoy some of it in the context of the movie. Like I said, I think "What's Up, Danger," like the implementation of that is perfect.
Yeah,
And
what's
I
up,
think it could be
Dangerous?
corny. That very much could be corny, and none of it ever is. Which is another thing that this movie. I want to talk to you about that too, real quick, because I don't want to say that this movie has opportunities to be corny, but at the same time, it does. It gets pretty heavy. It has obviously a lot of quipping, a lot of the Marvel stuff, a lot of things that can typically come off as corny even in MCU movies. But I think the difference here is that it's done, it's self-aware, and B, it's just so like
It's
the
very
the
self-aware movie.
the writing's so much better than most of the MCU movies, and more mature, and more thought-provoking in that, and more funny
Yeah,
in that sense.
it's
So
definitely yeah. There's a
it's
lot of
it's
I don't.
interesting
Yeah.
because I think that this movie could broach corny with what it's trying to do, but it's impressive how it never does,
Hmm.
which I think is a really great thing. And I think an example of this in this movie being self-aware of what it's when Peter B. Parker falls and Miles is like looking down talking to him and he's like, with great power come, and then he's like, yo, don't finish that, I don't want to hear that. It's
Hmm.
like that, like it's like that's our react, like that's the audience reaction to it. And even in 2018, hearing that line in a Spider-Man movie, because it's so predictable. And they did it in No Way Home, and it didn't really work because it's just it's hard, because it's hard to do that without feeling forced. So for
Yeah. I mean,
Spider-Verse to
even
have
the
that scene and then say it and then kind of give the audience just like, yo, stop that shit.
yeah, I was gonna say even
It's
if like
smart.
you from the beginning they did that with just saying like we'll do this one last time when it comes to an origin story because of how many times we fucking had to sit here through an origin
Right.
story of a different Spider-Man.
Right.
And they knew they like it felt like the writers like, all right guys, we have to make an origin story, but let's try to make it not so much like a typical origin story.
Well, and it's
But
like,
let's
well, and it
go ahead.
takes some of those cliches too, right? Like with the intro stories and like there's like comic strips. They go through it a lot with all the different characters of like their past or whatnot. Like that's such a done to death cliche thing that typically is a problem in movies. But
Hmm.
because the writing is so good, and in a lot of them genuinely hilarious, and the animation and the style of it is like so over the top stylized, it's like you turn a cliche annoying thing typically into something that's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
And it's just crazy,
like
I think, what this movie is able to accomplish. Like it
yeah.
really is.
I love the origin story of Michael B. Parker. Man, that shit is hilarious.
Yeah, I know, I love it too. He's like, so when I was doing push-ups and getting stronger, he's like on his bed eating pizza.
Yeah,
He gets taken
or he's just
into the
like He's like, yeah, the typical thing, fighting crime, you get married, and then you make a bad financial situation, and then you get divorced. And I'm
Just
like,
the
yo,
idea of the depressed everything went wrong Peter Parker is so good. It's so
yeah,
good. I
I
also
think it's
love.
hilarious.
I think it's great how like the original Peter Parker in this world just dies early in the movie.
Yeah,
Like I think that's
that's
like the
like,
first thing. Like when you're watching it for the first time, you're like, yo, wait, what? Like what?
I think that they needed to
What are
do
we
that.
doing? Yeah, because then
Yeah.
it's like obviously it increases the stakes, but it just even beyond that it's a kids movie, so it's like you don't expect that. It kind of put it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit. If your attention wasn't already demanded by looking at the movie, then the story will do it.
Yeah, because
S-
like again, I've been saying it since it came out. When it comes to this movie, changed the animation game
oh yeah,
substantially.
yeah.
Like
No,
it
no, yeah,
really opened up the eyes for people of like, hey, listen, this is what you can do, and we're showing you that you're lacking in a lot of places, and you need to actually step your game up.
and
And movies have after this movie came out
that's
too.
what I was gonna say. It's a good thing that we're doing this now because we're now in the time that we've seen the influence that it's had.
Yep.
Look at Puss in
Puss in
Boots.
Boots.
Yeah,
Puss in Boots is is an amazing movie as well. We'll talk eventually
for
for
sure.
sure. And it took I like especially right on the first action scene. It took so much inspiration out of this movie when
Yeah,
it comes to animation style and just the colors, the vibrant strokes of just it just looks like it was painted.
because they really did
In
like
that movie.
push the envelope.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like that's
I
something that like I mean, obviously that's not even something that you really expect of a movie or hold something against a movie that it's not pushing the on like that. So the fact that it does like it needs to be acknowledged like yo like this is not just a great movie. This literally like pushed animation and honestly back into popularity because animation's had I mean it's had its ups and downs, but around the time before this movie came out, that was the time Pixar really started crumbling apart. And there was just a
oof.
lot of question marks around the animation industry going forward, and this movie kind of sparked that again.
Hmm.
And it feels like it did light a fire under, obviously different studios and creatives, and that's why we've gotten things like Puss in Boots thanks to this movie. So it really
Yeah, if
can't
you
be
ever thought
understated rather the influence of this one for sure.
yeah, it was the same with Puss in Boots. If you thought I was walking into that movie thinking I was gonna come out thinking the animation, the story, any of that was gonna be good, yeah, it's the same exact situation.
Now,
Um,
we've already talked a good deal about the movie, but we're gonna get into, of course, like the each individual elements that we like to go down on here. I'm sure
yeah.
we both have a lot to say about a lot of them, so we'll get
Hmm.
to it. Uh, we'll start with the characters. Now, I'm gonna start this off. I'm gonna read the characters. Actually, you know what? No, take that back. We're gonna go down the list. I'm gonna read you the cast, and we're gonna talk about the character. How about that? Okay,
Sure.
that's how we're gonna do this. So, Shamik Moore plays Miles Morales. Now, I looked at it because I was curious, and it seems like he hasn't really like this is his like third movie he's ever been in, I think, and I think still his only notable role. I could be wrong on that, but at least from what I've seen and what I've researched, there's not much. But talk to me a little bit about Miles in this movie, and I guess you can talk about his performance or his character or whatever interests you. But yeah, just tell me a little bit about Miles in this movie.
Miles isn't my favorite character in the whole movie, but he's definitely one of the better characters that obviously because he's the protagonist. But it starts off from the jump of just what the movie is trying to proclaim of not fitting in, of being stressed, finding yourself, and like expectations is one of the bigger kind of things that you see throughout the movie. And he's showing him how different he is by just his shoes and how he doesn't feel understood whenever his shoes are untied and people around him like, hey, your shoes are untied. He's like, I
It's
know, bro.
intentional. Yeah.
It's I do this. Yeah. And it kind of I think we all have been a Miles in one point in our life, just showing expectations are
Still
so heavy
Miles.
for him. Yeah, exactly. And some of us are still Miles, but expectations are so heavy for him at a younger age, and, and everyone sees like a potential in his greatness, especially his father, and that's why he pushes him so hard. But Miles just wants to do him. Miles just want to live his life the way he wants to go. But it's hard to do that when those expectations of what they see in you is not the same as what you're seeing.
Mm.
Um, and you get to, and it even becomes more and more down the line because once he gets actually bitten by the spider, now he feels even less normal. Now he can't. Now he's really not able to fit in. He's going to a new school. No one doesn't really know anyone there. Now he's like only Spider-Man, and it's like now you're just feeling very very alone at that point. And I think the movie did something really good with showing you that you're still gonna have stressors in your life and whatnot. When it showed at the beginning, the whole where they were running around the school for him and like it like kept saying those like I forget exactly what words those teachers were saying, but it hits you with those bigger words of like expectations or like commitment or like those kind of words that while he's running around trying to get to class, and it was very just stressful for him. And they brought it back in the spider cave as well when they are all asking him questions of if can you do this, can you do that, and it brought that same intensity, showing that even without him being Spider-Man, he was being it was being stressful for him just being the kid he is and expectations, and now he's shown more expectations for being also Spider-Man, and a lot more people are now counting on him as well.
Mm.
Um, and so, and you can see him. A lot of this movie is about being yourself and also being who you are. And you see him try at the beginning, trying to fit in by like him buying the costume at the start, and he's trying to look like other Spider-Man. He's trying to just kind of fit into that role that he doesn't know how to yet. So it doesn't look good on him. It doesn't, he looks weird. He's also like reading other the Spider-Man comics to see what he should do next, to see how he should, go about his story. Stuff like that is like, the movie very much so proclaims of how expectations can lead you to not be who you are,
Mm.
and it kind of, and we'll talk more into those kind of scenes that down the line kind of like embrace change and embrace who you are. But yeah, when it comes to Miles, I think it was a very well executed protagonist. I think the role of I think any person growing up kind of had that kind of feeling, and so like I think that it's very easy to relate to Miles in that situation. So yeah, I think Miles is a great character.
I think that's perfectly said. I can't really say much better than that. I will
I'll
add
let you talk about the other character more.
that I think it encompasses. I think Miles encompasses Spider-Man and the general theme of Spider-Man very, very perfectly as well. I
I
think
would say the nerdy part not as much, but
I
yeah,
I still it's not necessarily as nerdy, but
he's
it's
smart.
artsy. That's the word I'd use for it. He's
Okay, yeah, I
still
got you.
he
I got you. I see what you're saying.
but I li-
Yeah, because I mean,
and you brought it up
because like
and
Tobey Maguire was a film kind of guy. He's more of
right.
a drawing art kind of guy. I get what you're saying. So yeah, but I mean, but still, if we're talking about nerd, Toby takes
But
it
in
every
terms
time
of
for
not
me.
being able to fit in,
Right.
and being like this encompasses that very well, and that is
Oh
the
yes.
part of Spider-Man, and it's something that I wish the Holland movies would lean more into because I don't feel like they really do.
I'm
But
telling you, just off the record, the next Tom Holland movie, it may be really good. From what the ending showed me, what the ending showed me is where I think it'd be at least his best one out of all of them.
you
I
mean
think it may be his best.
you're talking about like Tom Holland Spidey?
Yeah,
I
the the
see.
last one where he's a kid that has nothing.
Yeah. I
I,
I have mixed feelings on. I'm with you. I love the ending of that movie. It's one of my favorite parts about it. But
that's
I'm
literally
kind
yeah.
of
I mean,
Spider-Maned out at this point. Like, I don't know if I really want them to keep doing Spider-Man movies. We've gotten a lot
oh well,
in
yeah,
the
but we're
last
about to
10
get another
years.
one in the next tomorrow
Yeah,
or
but
next week.
I'd rather just keep the Spider-Verse movies at this point and let the rest go.
I'm okay with that too. But
But
that's not the world we live in.
yeah,
So
no, it's very much not. And I guess we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into the storytelling, but I really do like how this movie opens up, and I think they do such a good job of establishing who Miles is and letting the audience very much know who he is with this dilemma in the beginning about, going to this new private school and him being kind of a poster child in a way at the public school. You see him walking by when he's going to his new school, talking to everybody, saying what's up, and everybody seems to like him. And then the dichotomy when he gets to the private school, everyone thinks he's weird. I think it really does a good job of
uh,
telling you so much about his character while also developing the story right from the get-go. Um, but yeah, I think obviously Miles has the biggest character arc. The plot revolves around him. The themes revolve around him, and who he's associated with and his family and these things. And we'll talk about some of those characters in a minute. But um, I think he just does such a great job for somebody that hasn't done too much in the film industry prior. The voice acting is really convincing at most points and really allows the emotion to be where it's needed, and
Hmm.
I definitely appreciate that. So yeah, definitely thumbs up. Sounds like from both of us. The next character, of course, I'm assuming a fan favorite, Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker. Now, Jake Johnson is also, just a little flashback, the principal in 21 Jump Street.
Ah,
Yeah, so that's a fun little fact for you. He's in a lot of the 2010s comedies, Neighbors, Let's Be Cops. He's also in Tag. He
tag,
worked for
bro.
He was one of the employees for Jurassic World in Jurassic World. So he's been in a myriad of things. He's kind of gotten around, but he's fucking hilarious in this movie, and this character is awesome.
Hmm.
Like the idea of a depressed, kind of defeated Peter Parker is fucking hilarious. And like
Yeah.
it's perfect the way that they we'll talk about the real Peter Parker in this world in a minute. He's the next one on here, but when obviously when that Peter goes out and then this one comes in, it's just so funny to see like the absolute opposite and just somebody who was already trying to like help teach this kid and do all these things for this kid within the first 10 minutes of meeting him, and then you have like this dickhead who's just being like
Yeah.
an absolute ass, but he's also clearly like done with himself and just done with everything that's going on. um he's definitely, I feel like, the levity, especially in the early bits of the movie, to what's going on and kind of the, I don't know, just he is quite the interesting character. And I love, we talked about it a little bit before, but I love his intro, um,
Oh,
where
it's
he's
yeah,
saying all these
it's
things and
great.
it's showing him doing like the exact fucking opposite. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's great.
And again, great voice work as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. With Michael B. Parker, that was actually probably my favorite character throughout the whole movie.
Mm,
One of the biggest things with him, I think he was the second. I think he was in second place when it comes to
growth. I
growth of a character. And like, and I didn't really pick it up that much on this time around, but or last time around. I'm sorry that I watched these movies. I watched it 5 fucking times. I just never dissected it like this as much. But I really dove in on him saying his dilemma of not being a father or not being ready to be a father.
mm,
And you see him slowly get to a point to where he is a proud father of Miles in the sense where he's becoming a dad when he doesn't care to like helping him swing. That was like the first part you see that, and then you see him sitting in the back of the bus while Miles is talking to Gwen, and you see him smile like if he's a proud father of his son, just getting out there and just talking to new people or whatever. And then the next part, where I also have it down here, was you see him being proud of Miles when he's trying to talk him up in the cave of talking about all the things that he can do. So you see him slowly becoming literally just a father to a kid that needed a mentor. And I think you've seen his growth in that way throughout the movie as well. And I thought that was really good that the
and
movie did.
I think you kind of see him start to realize too that like his advice that he's giving, he also needs to take in and take responsibility for. And it's also
Hmm.
his growth that he's also portraying on somebody that's not going through the same thing he is, but still similar, both kind of lost in their way throughout much of this
Yep.
movie. But yeah, definitely a standout character for sure. One that we didn't get to see too much of, Chris Pine as Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Chris Pine, of course, pretty big actor. He's in Wonder Woman, of course, the Star Trek rebooted movies, and my personal favorite performance for him in Hell or High Water, which is a
Mm.
movie hopefully we'll talk about one day. But uh, yeah, so obviously there's not too much to say about Peter Parker. He's not in it very long. I really admire, and again, this is probably more of a storytelling point, but I admire what they did to his character and kind of establishing stakes very early on in something that you wouldn't think would have them. I thought was brilliant, and I gotta say, for the little bit that he's in this movie, um, it's great because it's so Spider-Man. From the moment that you see him when he's like fighting against the Collider or whatever, you notice like he's quipping immediately, constantly, like just automatically the first moment that you see him. I think the first thing that he says, he's just quipping back at the villain, and it's so on point. The little that you see him, you can tell they really got the character right. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because you see a lot of different variations of Spider-Man, of course, in this movie. I think the one that lines up the most with the Peter Parker that we know, the core central, like what everyone knows as Spider-Man, is probably Miles because of the lack of Chris in this movie, but they really did portray the Peter Parker that we all know and love very well for the short amount of time that he was in the movie.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty much cookie cutter how you
Yeah,
could. And I think that makes sense of why they did that as well. Like I think if now I'm thinking about just now where how we're saying that this movie was very they understood what they were doing when it comes to being a origin story. And it was kind of like they made the cookie cutter origin story of a Spider-Man and then they killed it. You see what I'm saying? Like
right.
and like metaphorically and literally they did both of those things. And so like I think that they just did that very well. That they knew what they were doing with that. Actually, I feel like so. Yeah, but I
He
mean,
has
we
this
didn't see much.
he has this line too. I wrote this down, but um when he's fighting, and obviously this is when the collider is about to go off and obviously he's about to die, but uh Miles is like freaking out, and he's kind of over there talking to him. He's like giving him a little pep talk as all this crazy shit's happening behind him. He's like, all right, I just need to go destroy this big green machine before the space-time continuum collapses. And it's just like it's but he says it no
Like, all right.
nonchalantly, but it's like obvious, like he's about to, the whole fucking world's about to explode. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's very Spider-Man, very accurate. So I did appreciate his little addition in there. A bigger character is Haley Steinfeld. A lot of people I know, our good friend Joey has a huge crush on her, and maybe rightfully so. But she's in this. She plays Gwen. She's also she's known for her breakout performance, where I think people really started taking note of her, was True Grit, that 2010 film. Spectacular movie. She was also recently in the Hawkeye series, which she was great in. In fact, the best part about that series is really about her. I don't really even, I mean, they named it Hawkeye, I'm assuming for marketing, but the show's really about her in that show. Um, but she's great. I like Gwen. I like that they chose Gwen as the primary instead of MJ. I think it makes sense given that we're dealing with a different variation of Spider-Man and just how much we see MJ as it is in all of these movies. Um, but I think that there's some layers to her character, which I don't think I really picked up too much on before, but this time I kind of noticed just with her haircut and the things that she kind of goes through as well. Um, is
Mm.
interesting. I did want to ask you. There's one moment with her that I do question because it's revealed by her. She's like telling him about how he's like, oh, like we were supposed to meet, that one day at school, in the flashback to when he ripped her hair all out or whatever. But it made me think, she in that moment she seemed obviously concerned, confused, all of the above. But if she was aware of these abilities, then would she not know what was going on at that point? And then just like right there, been like, oh my god, you're Spider-Man too.
Um, you're saying like she knew to go to that school
Well, no,
and
I'm
like
I'm saying like, because the scene where they first meet up,
right.
and she like grabs her shoulder or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then starts like pulling her hair out, and she's like freaking out. She's like, yeah, nice to meet you too, or whatever, in the principal's office. Don't you think she would have known what was going on at that point rather
I
than
mean,
later on?
you could, yeah. I mean, well, you're saying that you're thinking she should have known that because what else can explain him being able to
His
just
hands being so sticky that like he can't let
yeah.
go of her hair. Like you'd think if she can wall climb and do all these things, she'd know a little bit of why that was happening.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she again. It could just be you're picking holes through it, like the
Maybe,
plot.
maybe.
But I mean, like you could just think like she just thinks he's actually holding on to it. Like you can't really see his hand, maybe fully. I don't fucking know. But I mean, like yeah, that'd be the best thing I could say. But yeah, I guess once they do cut it off, it is still sticking to his hand. So unless you
Yeah,
may think
exactly.
he's the weird kid in class and he puts glue on his hands or something. I don't know. There's a lot to think about in that situation. Like if I was her, would I not know? Or I mean, like even before or after that, when she sees him outside on the wall, just
True.
wall walking, I'm like, you at that point, don't you think you probably should go and talk to him and be like, hey, I'm also Spider-Man. Besides showing up at the most convenient time later in the movie, but yeah, I don't
I
know.
also want
I
to
mean,
say that her suit in this is
oh,
sick.
it's fire. Yeah,
It's so sick.
he has the
I
second best suit.
love it. Yeah, I
I'll
agree.
say the second best. I still, yeah, no,
I have one. We'll get there to my favorite character, but he's also my favorite suit.
I knew that.
Um,
I know your favorite characters. I do,
yeah, I know.
by the way.
It makes sense that you do. But yeah, not good. the whole idea of a Gwen Spider-Man is sick, and when her suit looks that good, and they actually give her a character that you get to kind of know and understand before you're even aware of who she is, it was done
Yeah,
very well. And again, a good example of a female character done right and actually given
right.
a
Yeah,
character, which I really
I was gonna say
appreciated.
the
They
same
didn't
thing
really
about
dig too
that.
much into the romance or anything, which I appreciate because that movie did not need that.
No, I mean,
So,
I think they did the female characters perfectly in this movie too. I
alright.
mean, all the way down to just Aunt May. I think she even was done well, and then the even Doc Ock. Yeah, I love the one liner that Michael was it Michael not Michael was it Parker B whatever
Oh, Peter B. Parker.
Peter B Parker where he says where he's like, we gotta find the main doctor's computer, or whatever. And then she was like, actually, it's her right there. He's like, all right, well, I gotta re-examine my personal bias.
Yeah, that yeah.
I was like, bro, I didn't pick that up all the other times I watched this, but that was hilarious that he said that.
One of my favorite lines from him, because I love it when he's being so critical on the other Spider-Man, and he's like taking him down to to Peter Parker, the one that passes the layer. He goes,
Ye- I think
he
I know what
goes,
you're
I
talking
mean,
about.
this place is pretentious.
Yeah.
He's like, it's just so perfect for his character to be spiteful towards the other, like more accomplished and
Yeah. I
respected
didn't.
Spider-Man.
I didn't talk about the other like some of the one-liners that Miles had as well, but like you see, most of them for me were early on, where where the scene with the hair pulling, where he's like, "It's just puberty.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just puberty." I'm like, she's like, "I don't think that's what puberty does," but hey, man.
And I
And then the
also,
whole go ahead, go ahead.
real quick, because I just remembered, I love this scene in they're like in it's a Spider-Man crowd. There's like what do
I
they
was
call
gonna
it?
say
His
that one too.
memory
Yeah,
thing where, where it's like we're all Spider-Man. He's like, I'm Spider-Man, and then someone turns over. He's like, probably not you specifically. I think it's a
yeah.
metaphor.
He's like, yeah, they're counting on me. He's like, well, not
Yeah,
you. I'm not counting on you specifically. Like,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah. We're
metaphor.
and then the whole thing where he's running through the school and he's like, he has his internal thoughts, and then she's like, they're all looking at
Yeah,
me, and then the fucking super tall girl, he's like, yeah, that girl's a favorite song.
yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's a very funny movie. There's a lot of good lines in this movie.
It's very relevant too. It seems to have a good taste of because a lot of movies kind of fumble the whole like high school thing, or the
Hmm.
whole school thing and how kids talk and all this and that. Like they really seem to just misunderstand that. But this movie does a good job of kind of being in touch in a way. It's
Yeah,
not really anything that's like outwardly cringe or that's like, oh, kids don't talk like that. So
yeah. I
that
will
was good to
say,
see.
without me knowing 100% completely, I'm gonna say that your favorite character did say my favorite line, like
Yeah,
my
he
favorite
probably
like
did.
funny line.
Yeah, I have like
Yeah,
5 of his lines written down.
like the one line for him is I bust out laughing every time I hear him say it because it's so it comes out of nowhere and he just says it and it's like okay, yeah,
Does it have to
okay.
do with the cube?
I know that one you're talking about, but no, mine's another one.
All right,
Same character though.
it's coming up. It's coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
Mahershala Ali plays Aaron Davis or Prowler. This is one of the standout. Also Miles' uncle. This is one
Prowler.
of the standout characters for me. Um,
Yep.
real quickly, again, suit phenomenal. Um,
Yeah.
also, his introduction in the story and how he's used is so smart. It gives so
It's
much to
great.
Miles' character and the family dynamic, and for him to be the villain when his brother's a cop and Miles is kind of caught in between this and he's Spider-Man, and it,
It does a lot to the
it's
story.
so good. Yeah, it does. And then
And
the
also,
twist, like obviously once you've seen it, it's hard to forget. But like when you're
mm,
first watching this, like that twist really is a like wow, like
yeah, because like
that's
you got to think about how Miles is in that situation where the only place he goes to is Uncle Aaron, where he can be himself and
oh
relax and
dude,
not think of expectations and stuff like that.
the scene where he's
Um,
leaving the note and then his uncle like comes in through the window and like
mhm.
looking around and like the tent. Oh my god,
It's crazy, yeah,
yeah,
because like then he like instantly he goes into where he goes into like his cloaked form and everything like that as well. And again, before it goes any further, I have to say something about it. But I think the Prowler theme is like one of the
yeah.
best things
I
in this movie.
agree. I agree. I'm glad you brought that up.
It is
It
so
is
good.
so good for no reason.
Like they went crazy on the Prowler thing. Like every time he's on screen, it fucking hits, and it's just like, oh my god. And then it even I don't know if you caught it, but they even played a little bit of it when he went to go visit the grave, and Michael
Yeah,
P.
but when he's
Jordan
yep,
or Michael P.
when he's coming
whatever.
up behind,
I want to say Michael B. Jordan all the time, but it's Parker B.
when he's at Peter's
Whatever.
grave. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yep.
And if they play a little bit of it, and but obviously because it gives you that like, oh shit, it's the Prowler when you're first time watching it, and then obviously it's not, but yeah, I can't get enough of that theme. I think it's amazing.
Great theme, great character, great outfit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good twist on just the uncle role of even him still dying in the situation, but dies in a
Well,
different way and also feels way more impactful as well.
it works too because it's one of those things, right, where it's like when villain twists are so much more effective when the character that's the villain is built up in a way that you already like really like the character, and it almost hurts you to see him be the villain because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
like because they like he really is like the perfect cool uncle in this movie. Like they depict that very well with the his
Yep.
his dad is much more strict. He's a cop. He's obviously just in a way different point in life, and his uncle is kind of living free, and obviously you figure out what he's doing, but much more lighthearted, willy-nilly, and Miles is kind of more like him in a lot of ways, and then for him to be the villain and then his dad to be the cop, and then ironically they were at one point both against Spider-Man. It's a very interesting dynamic, family dynamic, and just such a wonderful use of a character slash villain for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
Then speaking of, we'll talk about it while we're here. Brian Henry plays Jefferson Davis, Miles' dad. He's most known for being in Atlanta, a show I have not seen, but I've heard great things about. Um, Tell me a little bit about what you think about the dad character. He's in the movie quite a bit. Obviously doesn't really drive the plot at any point, but he certainly plays a role in it.
He does. He plays more of the role that we see in possibly our own fathers of just expects
Yep.
the best out of you, and they may not. And like we'll talk more about this actual scene that leads up to one of the best scenes of all time for me. But where they don't tell you enough how much they are proud of you or how but they think they're being a good father by setting you up for success by telling you to do this or do that or giving you those expectations, which this movie it hits on so many times. And he's the main factor for Miles's mostly dilemmas in his head of I'm expected to do so much because of what my father thinks of me or how I need to do this because of my father. You see it whenever he wants to go and paint with the or wants to go spray paint with his uncle, and his dad texts like, "You did finish homework?" He's like, "All right, I know what I need to be doing. I know what I should be doing." His dad is a very focal point in that. Or when Miles feels even at the lowest point and alone, and his uncle's not even able to answer him, he wants to call his dad, but then he doesn't because
Right.
so how is he supposed to tell that to his father? He doesn't feel he doesn't feel he's that connected to his father like that.
Right.
Um,
I
Granted, I
I,
don't know why. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I just think it's um very what's the word I'm looking for here? I guess thematically appropriate, but because the movie you touched on it earlier, the movies, and we'll get more into it when we talk about themes, but maybe the biggest theme of this movie is kind of about coming into your own and being your own version, or the best version of yourself. And by
Hmm.
having the dad be this way that you're describing, it really allows that plot of that, and almost like I don't want to say like a lesson, I guess a lesson to dads, because that's not really it, but like it shows his growth at the end when he asks his son to do
Allows,
the art
yeah.
for him, right? Because it's like then he also learned like that whole time he was trying to get him to be the best version that he saw fit. But what he
Yep.
didn't realize is you got to let them be the best person that they can be, not the best version that you expect of them.
Hmm.
And that's so those two things really connect. And that's when you start to make these connections. That's what I said at the beginning of this about this movie being so purposeful. Like everything comes together. There's no like loose
Yeah.
threads or characters or like why are they here? There's so much purpose in everything that's going on, and his dad definitely enforces that. But anything else before we move on to the next?
Um. No, I think they did.
Yeah,
Like,
good.
again, I think they made
Served
all
the
the
story
characters
very
pretty
well.
well. But
Yeah.
yeah, the dad was in the movie, and where he does exactly what you need him to do in that movie. So yeah.
John Mulaney, Saturday Night Live star, played Peter Porker. Obviously there for comedic relief, but I like this character a lot. because it's so obviously like supposed to be a Looney Tunes era-esque character. Like even like me said, like that's all folks. Like it's so like on
Yeah.
the nose, but it's perfect. And it's just this movie's already so crazy, and by the point that he enters the movie, it's gotten so crazy with all the different characters that he almost doesn't even seem that weird compared to some of the other shit that's going on. But um, but it's still a welcome
Yeah.
addition, and it's just again they you can tell like w- even though this movie manages to be so like on the nose perfect on all these things and hitting at all the criteria, it also allows itself to just have fun. And this character is an example of that. Of being like,
Yeah.
yeah, why not? You know, like why not? And it does. It enhances the movie. It gives it more flavor than it already has. And I don't know. Again, this character doesn't obviously have much character development or any really anything. It's just he's just
Nope.
there simply to make the audience laugh. But it works. Like I love the tone, the flavor that he kind of brings. Great
Yeah.
character. Great character.
Yeah, I don't got much to say on him in that fact. I think you know, the movie just said, "Let's throw this in here because why
Why
not?
not?
Let's just go for it," you know. And I'm okay with those kind of
Yeah,
risks.
exactly.
I'll take those
Especially if
any
they
day.
pan out. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kiniko Glenn plays Penny Porker, who is she's known mainly for Orange Is the New Black. That's where she's most notable from. But Penny Parker, of course, the mech variant of Spider-Man. Now, I love this from I remember the first trailer that she was in. I can't remember if that was the first or second trailer, but just from her in the promo, I was already in because it reminded me of course, Diva, and just
Oh
the
God.
idea of like a Spider-Man
The
variant
Spider-Man
that's in a
diva.
mech suit. Again, it's what I was just saying. Like it's so outrageous, but like fuck it. And the
Yeah. I mean,
super
I
Japanese
yeah.
thing, like it's in line, like it's in character and aware enough to where like again, I think it works. Like, she doesn't like the last character that we talked about, Peter Porker. Doesn't really add much, but also is just like a welcome addition at the same time.
Yeah. And
Not too much to say.
there's even a little heartfelt thing with her too when her bot dies. I
Yeah,
think you know
I was
it.
thinking of that where she's like crying or whatever. I'm like, dude, that's like every diva when they get out of mech.
Yeah.
It's like
But it's
every
like, I feel like I should be connected to that character, but at the same time, I still felt at least a little bit of something about even that. Even though you don't really get to know much more about
I think
her,
it's because
just
you
that
you
she's in the
kind
future.
of you kind of buy into the camaraderie of all
Right. Like
of the
it's a
group,
team now, so
right?
everyone you care for all of them now. But 'cause, like honestly, if any of them died, I'd be like, damn, that's
Right,
not fun.
right,
Um, so unlike some movies where I'm like, right, you can kill off every character, and I still wouldn't care. So yeah,
right. And we have three more characters left. This
yeah,
one is my
I'm waiting to get to
personal favorite
yours.
character.
Yeah, there it is.
Nicolas Cage needs
Yep.
no introduction. You know what he's in.
Yeah.
You know where he's from.
Mhm.
Everywhere. Nicolas Cage plays
Yep.
Spider-Man Noir, and man, I fucking love this character.
I'll let
Like,
you talk about him.
okay, first of all, the aesthetic is my favorite of any of them for sure.
Mhm.
It looks so the black. It's so like the way that it looks in this animation style.
It definitely pops out,
It pops
which
so
it's supposed to do the opposite, which is very
I
ironic in that
know,
sense.
but it's so cool. And like I
Oh
can't
yeah.
every time he's on screen, like I just have to look. I'm like, dude, this is sick. And then on top of that, so they're like, all right, we have this sick suit. What are we gonna do with it? We're gonna have Nicolas Cage just play a very like sarcastic and kind of demeaning to the point dickhead, and we're gonna put him in
Yeah.
the movie. And dude, his lines
He's
consistently,
got
they're
my favorite
so
line.
wherever the wind goes, I follow.
Yeah. Bro, my favorite that he ever says.
This is a pretty
I don't
hardcore origin story.
like he that's a good one too. He comes out of nowhere with it. I swear he came out of left field, but he's like, yeah, I let matches burn to the fingertips to feel
Yeah,
something. I'm like,
yeah, I know.
yo.
It's so like overt. It reminds me
I'm
a
like,
little bit of like
okay.
it reminds me a little bit of Luna in the Mario movie. It's just like everything else is so happy and
Oh,
optimistic, and she's
Luna,
just is
yeah,
like I'm
yeah,
just like
yeah. It's like we're all gonna
yay, like they're
die.
descending in the lava, and she's like But anyway, yeah. And then also the line that he has, I said it before, but everyone else gives their sentimental goodbyes. He's like, I'm taking this cube thing. I don't understand it, but I will. I'm just walking through it. It's just so. I don't know, man. Like his character again is my favorite in this whole movie. Doesn't have much in terms of development or anything of that nature, but
He reminds me
between his look and
of
his
a
sense of
Drax as
humor
well.
and Nicolas Cage just being Nicolas Cage, it's just
Yeah, it works. Again,
it does
I think
work.
all of
It's
it works. All the
so
characters do.
and the fact that Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage and bigger than probably everyone else in this cast list to just be a
Mm,
side character and to be completely cool with it, no, it tells you how much he bought into this.
mm.
So
I think he
it's
probably
good to
just thought the
see.
character was really dope. He was like, "Yeah, I'm down to play this
Yeah, I
character."
mean, shit, they give you that picture, I'd be like, yeah, I don't care how long he's in the movie, I'll
Yeah.
take it. Um, last two we have Catherine Hahn as Doc Ock. She's in a mix of things. She's in We're the Millers, The Visit. She was also in Glass Onion, which is a movie we might need to do at some point, maybe after the first
Hmm.
one, because I haven't seen Glass Onion yet. I've heard good things, but I haven't seen it myself. I like the first one, but I like the female spin on Doc Ock, especially because I think it's weird because you would kind of expect it at first because she's the head scientist of this large corporation, like that's Doc Ock, but obviously her being a female kind of twists that a little bit. You're like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So it is a little
Because yeah,
surprising,
because you're like Doc Ock's a man, so yeah,
right?
she can't be Doc Ock, right?
But it
But I
also
mean,
makes sense in this movie where they're breaking all the rules it makes
that's
sense that
the
that would be a thing.
stigmas.
You just kind of go with it. You don't ask questions like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it was like a forced thing either, which a
No,
lot more like Marvel movies can do is force a lot of that kind of like agenda that they may try to push. But this movie,
it
I
was
didn't feel that
seamless.
way at all with any of the female characters. I think they just were put in and it worked, you know.
Which I think,
Uh,
I want to do a whole discussion on what you just said, the agendas in movies and in media specifically, because I think that could be a very deep conversation and get a lot of good shit out of. But
yeah.
I just wanted to add this, that one of my arguments to that has always been like, it irks me so much how people like it's like all people need or want is representation in movies. I agree that representation can be in movies, but when your representation is boiling their character down to a stereotype within what you're representing, that almost is more
Yeah.
of an
Like I
insult than it is
like
than to put them in a movie where they belong and to actually give them a fucking character. It's like gay characters in movies and shows when their only character trait is being gay. To me, that's
like yeah,
offensive.
you
I'm
just
like
see
they're
them making
people
out.
too.
You just see them making
Like, give
out
them a
only. It's
fucking
like okay.
character. But then people
Yeah, I
want
mean
to
like
praise this for representation. I'm like, but does it not matter to you if it's good representation? Like,
yeah.
I don't,
I
I
don't.
don't get it. But I guess that's a different topic for a different day. But
Yeah, because like you don't like in most times when they're doing that, like you can see them pushing the agenda. They usually will make some pretty bad jokes about
right,
how you like, oh, you didn't expect me to be whatever because I'm like, bruh, like it's really like but in this movie, like even with the Doc Ock, you don't. That's never been like it was just she just feels like she's a bad bitch, and I am a villain, so I don't care what you think. It's like all right, cool.
and
That's
even Miles Morales. I mean, like it doesn't like that's a plus to this movie that like to me
oh
when I
yeah,
think about it, like I don't
I
think
don't even
about the race because
yeah I don't
there's no. I mean, I try to be like that. I mean, I am like that in general, where like I try to not see that at all and just see people for people. But it's hard for movies like what we were just talking about when they make such an obvious agenda that it's like yelling it in your face. And this movie never
yeah
does that, so I just see him as a great character,
because you
regardless
could.
of his
Yeah,
of
I mean, you can
anything.
see like with like his mom being Hispanic and his dad being black. You can see like obviously when it comes to just the typical white Spider-Man, you can see more of the minority crowd in this
Oh,
movie,
100%.
and it's just like but you don't. It's not beating you over the head
Right.
of whatever the case is of the agenda it's pushing. It's just yeah, we're a movie and we're just we look different or we sound different or whatever. That's just how it
And
is.
I believe
We don't.
it's giving these minorities a representation that they should want and celebrate. Like this
I
is
mean,
their
Miles
type of
Morales is like
representation.
is one of my is after this
Yeah.
movie has been one of my favorite Spider-Mans of all time now.
Absolutely, hands down.
Like
I mean,
like
yeah, it's hard to compare with the live action, but like I think he's right up there with Toby in terms of like all-time great in movies. Yeah.
Oh, I thought I did. I meant just the character Miles Morales, not just the movie.
Okay.
I meant just the character
Okay.
Miles Morales.
Yeah, no,
I just think I
he's
love
one
the
of the
fucking
best for sure.
suit and everything about it. It's like it's all there for me. I mean, when it comes to rating the movie in that sense, that'll be talk about that later.
Of course, of course,
So,
of course. So,
because I would like to know where it is for you in all the Spider-Man movies because we've talked about it before.
we have,
So,
we
and I
have.
think you know where mine is, where I rate it.
I 100% do.
Okay, yeah. All
Brandon,
right,
Doc
go
Ock,
ahead.
we touched on it a little bit, but I guess great character, great villain.
Mhm.
Doesn't do too much, but again, it's cool to see Doc Ock in a different light. And again, just with the style of this movie, Doc Ock makes sense with the tentacles, and you can go a little bit wackier with it because you're in an animated setting. So, uh,
Yeah.
good fun little mini boss type character. Obviously, is involved in the main plot. She built the reactor that the plot revolves around, so she is integral to it.
Yep.
And her relationship with Kingpin, which is the next character and final character we'll talk about, is also interesting. Speaking of Kingpin, Liv Schreiber plays Kingpin. Liv Schreiber is a very iconic actor. OG Scream, A Walk on the Moon, recently Spotlight and French Dispatch. He's also going to be in Asteroid City, which is Wes Anderson's movie that comes out later this year. I'm very fucking excited about. Um, but tell me a little bit about what you think about Kingpin. Obviously, the main villain of the
hmm
movie. They,
Um, I
yeah, go
think
ahead.
this is a very interesting character to me
Mm,
because you really want to feel bad for him a
mm,
lot of the time with what he's doing. You know he's going through a lot, but he's kind of taking it out in the wrong way.
right.
Obviously,
Selfishly.
and it's sad to watch a man go through life that way. And
Chasing his past, trying to detriment
yeah,
everyone's future. Yeah.
it's you know, and you're like damn, like that's I mean, I guess if you think about it, if you weren't thinking that much and you had all the money in the world, would you not try the same thing? Who knows? I don't. But I just wouldn't go kill people that ran my way.
Well, and
But
I think it works out. Like Kingpin, I mean, in the comics, in pretty much everything Kingpin has been represented in, he's never really been the sympathetic type. In fact, I think that this movie almost tries to give him more sympathetic elements than really anything he's been portrayed in beforehand. Because from what I'm thinking, Kingpin's always been the obviously the mob leader, the penguin of the Spider-Man universe, if you will.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I like his design. He's fucking huge, like, but he is in
he's
everything.
very huge.
He's ginormous, and he's like that in
I
everything.
mean,
So it
yeah.
makes sense. It's on character. It's on brand,
Hmm.
and I think he's a good villain. He kind of like you said, doesn't give you too much room to sympathize with him, but I think that's okay. I don't think that's necessarily a problem, but he does have established motivations, which is good, and I think he does
Yeah.
what he needs to do to be a big threat in this movie. Obviously, um, his involvement with the reactor and trying to bring his family back, which is also fucking with the space-time continuum, as I alluded to before. Um, and yeah, he's just I wouldn't say charismatic, but I think he is kind of charismatic in his own little way
Hmm.
throughout the movie. But a character that
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed and thought they did a good job depicting him. I do like Kingpin in the grander scheme of Spider-Man, so it was cool to see him here, and I thought he was done pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to villains in this movie, for me, it's like you had a bunch of villains throughout it. You had the Green
X
Goblin, you had
Scorpion popping up at
Prowler,
one
it's
point.
all of them, right?
Right.
And like, but honestly, to me, it's like I think what the movie was trying to do, and I think what it did very well, is like Miles Morales is a protagonist, but at the same time is also his own antagonist. And that's the main villain to
Right.
me is just
It's yeah, I
himself and him
agree.
battling everything that he's having to do. Like you don't have to have Kingpin in this movie. You don't have to have all these other villains for us to understand what the movie's about. They're there to move the movie forward for him to overcome those things, but that's like kind of my thought process on it as well with the villains in that sense.
Well, there you go. There you have it. I agree
Yeah.
with that. Very well said. I think that's true. That he really is his own villain, and that's what the movie's about. It's about, and I loved, and I guess we'll use this to kind of get into the storytelling part. But before I do, because I do have something that I wanna touch on,
Mhm.
I wanna ask you, what's your favorite character and what's your least favorite character in this movie? You said your
Ooh,
favorite was
fate.
Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker, correct?
It's kind of a tie between him and Miles, I'd say. I think Miles, I love Miles as well in this movie. I think Miles does a. I just love the suit. I think that's the best suit in the movie. Miles Morales' suit is my favorite. Especially the one with the hoodie and his Jordans as well. I think that what that does when it comes to it is like I just think that makes it looks the best for me, and also it embodies who he is the most out of other ones as well. And even with his own suit, him spray painting the the spider as well is like that's just that's him. And I love that about his whole costume. But the worst character, I gotta think about that one. That is hard for me to
Yeah, it's
say on
hard because
this.
I don't think that there's really a bad character or a character that I don't like. I guess I would say, shit, I guess Penny Parker. Just because if there's a character that I just listed that I would
If there
say
was
like if I
not
had to
out, yeah,
take
if
one
I could
out,
take him out of the movie,
probably yeah, I guess.
if I could take him out of the movie, I mean,
But I
I
don't think for either of us that's even a bad thing. Would yeah.
no, I yeah, if I will go that route too, but it's not because I don't like them. It's you know, I don't know, maybe the henchman uh that Kingpin brings around. I don't really he's there, but I've not there was no need for him to be in the movie to me. Like actually. I forget what it like I don't know like what his actual lore name would be in Spider-Man, but you know what I'm
Which one?
talking about. It's the guy that gets that he walks next to Kingpin all the time, and then whenever Spider-Man was just learning how to swing, when they go back, he gets fucking choked out, and he brings out two pistols.
Oh yeah, I don't either. I was trying to think of that while we were watching because that was the only villain that I saw. I was like I don't
I was
remember
like,
that.
but he doesn't do anything ever in the whole
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
He's
He's
just
like
there.
yeah, never
I'm like, okay.
speaks. Dude.
They never talk. He never talks. They never talk about him. They never even like look in his general direction. They just choke him out one time, and then that was it. I was like, okay,
He just
that
dies
was
out.
cool. Yeah, it's just a fucking goon. But it seemed like it was a very important goon for him to be seen so much. So, but yeah, that'd
Important
be
Goon.
mine.
There's his new name.
There
Um,
you go.
yeah, my favorites I kind of already said. Spider-Man Noir, and then I guess my least favorite's Penny Parker, but that's kind of arbitrary, honestly. Um, Storytelling. I wanted to get into this because I think there's a lot to say here. I think this movie accomplishes a lot in its story, honestly, more so than I remembered from when I watched it. Because I remember mostly more being keen on the visuals and thought the story was pretty good. But I think the story, watching it this time again and kind of analyzing it, I think is actually pretty great. Um,
Hmm.
I think there's one line that's used throughout this movie that I think encapsulates a lot with so little, and it's "you don't." And
Hmm.
there's plenty of moments, obviously, the kind of the progression of Miles' character throughout this movie is him becoming into his own Spider-Man, and oftentimes when he'll ask, and I think Jake Johnson, the character, but Peter B. Parker, I think says it to him a couple times where he's like, "How do I?" And then Peter's response is just, "You don't." And
It's a leap of faith.
it's great because I think it comes full circle, and that's it. Kind of almost explains the such a sudden jump from not really being able to hone in or control your powers to jumping into the fray and ultimately, doing what you need to do in the end so seamlessly. And I think it also ties into, again, what you were saying earlier about, trying to be validated, maybe trying to fit in and trying to be somebody. And it's like, how do I? And then it's just you don't. There's
Hmm.
also
Well,
a moment in there about being present. And I think that, again, everything in this movie, all of its threads kind of boils down to one kind of root theme that is what you said to me. And I think that's what this movie means to me is it's about becoming your own. It's about standing out. And even if you're in a, you're in a demographic like Miles where he's not even the only Spider-Man, but he's the only Miles version of Spider-Man. And
right.
again, like his full circle arc throughout the movie really it overcomes the plot like about the collider and overcomes all of these things, even the antagonist in the movie like you mentioned before, because the movie's really about that, and everything else is just to facilitate him getting through that arc.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the ending of the movie after like I think that if you wanted to, you could have ended the movie at the leap of faith. But everything after that is just watching Miles just be a badass at who he is at that
Right.
point.
But that moment feels earned, which I
Oh
love.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely like I was just saying you could end it there, and that would be like the the peak of the movie, and then but after that is like now we're all enjoying watching Miles become what we all saw in him already.
Especially
You
with that
know,
animation in the final third. I mean, the
ah,
animation's amazing throughout, but in that
animation
final
is
third, they went
stupid.
crazy. They were like,
Yeah,
holy shit. But
yeah. But when
I
it comes to the, go ahead.
I was gonna say the other thing that I wanted to add, and this is something that I remember. It was kind of a like fun little deja vu moment. But when he's going through, actually, nah, there's more scenes. What I'll say is Miles depicts, and the way that they portray it depicts anxiety almost better than I've ever seen it done in some
Mm-hmm.
cases. And when he's walking through the school, and there's a couple occasions of this, the first being his dad and the "I love you" thing, and then everybody, and like his, you can hear his thoughts, and like, oh my god, like, does everyone know, like, him freaking out, and you just hear, they do a lot with the internal thoughts in this movie, and it really is a great depiction of anxiety and like all these voices in your head, and then you trying to convince yourself when he's walking out of the principal's office after pulling the girl's hair out, and he's like, it's okay, nobody saw it, like he's trying to convince himself it's okay, then he realizes everybody's looking at him, he's like, oh my god, am I like, wait, and it's just like a meltdown, but it's so accurate and like well
Mm-hmm.
depicted, it's almost like tear inducing how perfect it is. And that's something that I really, really appreciate about this. Because, like I said, I think a lot of movies try to kind of encompass that, and they don't quite do it as effectively and as accurately as it's done here. So I do
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate that bit, as well. So I just wanted to underline that. But go ahead.
Okay. Uh, yeah. To talk on that when it comes to the internal thoughts and stuff, but the way they did it, I just picked up on it again because, like I said, I've like fully dissected it this watcher through. But that doesn't happen until he gets bit. Once he gets bit, it's like that was the starting of a comic book for him. For like that was his origin story is when he gets bit, and then boom, now all the internal thoughts he can hear, and then you saw the actual comic book text actually pop up on screen, and all those little things started to actually appear. But if you watch the movie before he gets bit, that none of that stuff was on the screen. No internal thoughts he was thinking popped up. No little like speech bubbles. You know, nothing that would be resemblance of a comic besides just the art style. Uh, would represent comic book until after he gets bit, which I thought was a really cool touch that they added within there. Um, and so that was my thing with that. But if we can start jumping into scenes, if that's like the next thing as well.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, yeah, I mean, this whole section is just really about everything in terms of storytelling
yeah,
and the
well, I think
script.
so. I was gonna say the thing that you said about once you're talking about Michael B. Parker or Peter. I keep saying Michael. I swear every time. Peter B. Parker. Where he tells Miles it's like you know you don't know or you know it's just gonna come to you type thing.
Right, yeah.
Um, I think that was a point where he kind of was able to start feeling like he could be himself, right? And like where he actually saw the training point. But I think the biggest one that I actually saw was when Miles and his dad have the heart to heart through the door.
When
When
he's
they
tied up.
yeah when he's tied up and he
Oh, the
actually
way
just
that's
listening to his
framed too.
father. Yeah, it's really good. Um, but the way that it's just his dad actually opening up and just expressing himself to his dad, um, or to his son,
Son, yeah.
and he's telling him that he's proud of him. He's telling him that like I just want you to know that I love you, pretty much. And I think at that point, Miles can now release all of the pent up energy, literally, that he's had of having to reach these
It's
expectations,
like a weight
and
off
he can.
his
Yeah,
shoulders.
it's a
Yeah.
weight off his shoulders, and like you saw the surge of energy, just boom, it pops out, and then he's now able to go and do what he needs to get done because he doesn't have to worry about failing because his father. He knows his father just loves him anyways. It doesn't matter if he fails about what he's about to do because his father just already has told him that he actually he thinks he's done amazing things already. I think that was for me the like at that point he switched.
Mm.
Which you see it obviously when he breaks out of the chair and all that kind of stuff. But none of that would have happened unless his dad said something to him at that point.
Yeah, and
So,
to add on that, because I think that is another point that we kind of alluded to before, but that needs to be emphasized, is how much the family triangle kind of propels this story. And it's a really the moment where Prowler, his uncle, dies and he's standing by his body, and then his dad finds him, and obviously, and maybe rightfully so, and that in his situation from what he saw kind of frames Spider-Man for it. Um, it's so interesting because you kind of see, like I said earlier, Miles and his dad aren't necessarily on the same page. Miles and his uncle is. He learns that obviously his uncle's working for Kingpin and is this villain that he's been fighting and that's been chasing after him. And then, of course, which leads to shortly after Kingpin killing him, and then standing over the body, and then his dad gets intertwined, and how this comes together. It was talked about before how his dad and his uncle didn't see eye to eye, and it seems like neither of them saw eye to eye with Spider-Man. There's a really fucking funny moment where Miles randomly asks his dad about like what's his problem with Spider-Man, and then his wife is like, or is his wife or
he's like, "Come on,
girlfriend?
baby." It's his wife.
Okay,
He's like,
that's
"Come on,
what.
baby. You know how I feel about
Yeah,
Spider-Man."
yeah, exactly. And
What
it's
you
just so
mean?
funny how he has this like pent up thing, like he's just going on a tangent. Um,
Yeah.
and Miles really is Spider-Man in this case. So I find that so interesting, and then seeing obviously the end and him come around on not only Spider-Man but also his son. And you're right, like his dad right next to Miles has probably the most character development, and Peter B. Parker as well, but that
Mm,
full circle moment at the end is really what ties this movie together, because it's something that you kind of touched on, the scene through the door. Um, and just Miles kind of having a push pull relationship with his father, and that's kind of like the embracing moment, and the moment where things really come together and both of their perspectives have changed. They've both changed, and now they both see eye to eye,
mm,
and they both Miles has accepted him, but also his dad has now accepted him, and has learned what accepting his son really means. And I think that
yeah.
changed as the movie went on. So I think again, I think that family dynamic is the driving force behind these themes, and I think a lot of the other characters are there to kind of further enforce that and further push that, when they're needed. But um, but yeah, I mean, from what the fact that this movie can accomplish so much from a storytelling angle when it looks this good and this amount of effort went into the animation, and it's a Spider-Man, of course, film, which already is going to have its critics just going in and dealing with something that's
Hmm.
already been dealt with so many
But
times.
we were those critics going into this movie.
Oh yeah, thousand. Like, God,
Yeah.
Spider-Man
So I mean,
again. Like,
and it's
like just
yeah, it's the
watch
same.
three different series of these.
It's
Like,
the same as Batman with even the Robert Patterson
yeah,
one.
it's like, oh,
It's
here we
like
go again.
the, yeah. Even though I thought after talking to you a little bit more about Robert Patterson, I was like, actually, you know what? He could probably do a good fucking job with this. And yeah, I'm sure we'll eventually
Oh yeah. Oh, we will.
get there one day too.
Oh, we
But
will.
we've been dancing around it for a little bit now. I think we're at the point where we discuss the best scene in the movie.
Okay. Okay.
Because we've been talking about all the other scenes around it, and I'm like, I don't know how we talk about this one. So I'm gonna let you dive into it first, and then anything that I think should be added about that scene, I will tie in.
So the leap of faith scene, Brandon, is clearly
Mm,
you said the peak, and I agree, because I think it's when I think that's the scene of the or the sorry, excuse me, the protagonist getting over the hill. And the
mm,
reason that scene works so well is because of where it's placed in the movie and what you see Miles go through prior, and to get to that point, to take that leap of faith and to finally, I think, fully understand what has been being told to him since basically the beginning of the movie. And it really is, it's such an effective it's a payoff, right? It's not the ending, but it's the payoff. You've been watching this character struggle and go through so much, and I think I mean throughout the entire movie you sympathize with it so much that you're really connected. So when you're connected and when you're at you kind of right before this, you're at his rock bottom. You're at Miles's worst. And then for him to kind of like you said before, kind of take all that energy and let it out and like it's just it has so much plot significance. It's visually stunning. I love like the visuals and the effects of the glass breaking and the music, and it just comes together and it's so symbolic but equally just at face value fucking cool as shit.
Oh yeah.
So it succeeds on both of those fronts so well. But yeah, I just think that's the encompassing point of the whole film to me is that moment.
Um. Yeah.
Go ahead.
With that scene, I think that like what you said when it comes to it being like it's the protagonist overcoming that hump. I think this scene out of like a lot of movies I've seen does that very well and like makes you feel something that it's like wow, like
Like
you
you just
see
got
that.
lifted up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like and again with I'll just touch on some of the points that just make it that fucking great. It's like the glass breaking, right? It's a direct thing to him still being nervous in the situation, but yet he has to take that leap anyways. Everyone is going to be nervous whenever obviously you're just going to be, but you have to take that leap.
It can be
And
metaphorical for so many things.
oh my,
Yeah,
it's
so
crazy,
many things.
and the it's like yeah, the glass breaking is still showing you that Miles is scared, but he knows he has to actually hit these expectations, right? And with expectations, I don't know who told me or anything about it, but when you watch it and you see it again, I know you've already picked it up as well, but they flip the camera to where the city line is above him,
Hmm.
and and so what it's really captivating in that situation is he's not falling towards the city, but he's actually rising to his expectations. And
It's
when I
so
heard that, I
smooth.
was like, oh my god! And they tease it at you with the like movie poster
Yeah, it has a
and
poster of the movie.
everything, and it's like it's him rising to the expectations that have been set to him, and you get to see it in like in the earlier in the film when he's falling down. It has the comic book but now it's him shooting up, and it's now saying woo. And then at the beginning he hits the flag, but now he's actually spinning off the flag. All those things that you see happening and you see it transpiring to now him adding his own personality to Spider-Man and him just swinging through the city and the music hits when he like finally catches his first web, and it just it makes you feel amazing, and all the little like things that you can grab from it, like the reaching expectations, him still being nervous because the glass is breaking, all the visuals that it does, with also his suit that he actually is wearing at the time, it's all beautiful to me. And it's up there for like my top, like especially animated scenes for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, for sure.
I because like it can't really top like a great actor scene type thing with this. It's kind of hard to like judge, but for animation type stuff, this it's very hard to even. I couldn't even name another one that I think that has like the same like interpretations that you could draw out from it, the same art kind of thing with it, like all of it kind of just it's symbolic. Like it's so good. It's so good to me that scene. Um, but yeah, it just there's so many things you could pick out from it that you're just like wow, I didn't even think of it that way. Especially the reaching to his expectations. It's like that's such a great touch that they did. It's yeah,
And
it's
that
good.
kind of further enforces what I was saying earlier about like every time I watch this movie now, I always feel like I pick up on more new things that I didn't before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's things like that. I mean, it's just they're subtle, some of them, and
Because you watch it the first time, you're like, okay, they switched the camera around, and he's just kind of still falling, but it's cool. He's like reaching
and
towards the
it's
city.
visually
It's like,
distracting. Like you can get so lost
yeah,
in looking at this
exactly.
shit that you forget about like, oh, there's dialogue going on. Like
Yeah, it's like no, they did that because now he's reaching. It's just like oh, because like that's where all of his problems are within the city. That is everything that's going on in the real world. Like corporate world that's the problem with what we have in our lives is we would love to be somewhere where like just to take a breath and just get away, and then we see that our expectations and all that is within in metaphorical terms, the city of just that big cluster of thoughts and things you have to do and yada this, yada that, and sometimes you just have to take the leap of faith and just reach out to those things that just go for your expectations. And it's man, again, like I said,
There's
I
just
can't get it. I can't get enough of that
it's just
scene.
so great because there's no fat in this, like no fat,
No.
and that's been and like I talk about this a lot because like that's been a big problem with me in a lot of movies, especially recently, where it's like, yeah, like you can have like a good story, some good characters, but like if you spend too much of your movie dicking around, just like trying to, I don't know, make like Marvel movies have this problem where it's
Hmm.
just like there's so many scenes of the characters just hanging out, basically like comedy skits type style, and it's like like there's no substance, there's no, it doesn't
I mean,
push the
you
plot
can.
forward, it doesn't
Yeah.
give any
I was gonna say
decent characters, like
even in the new Guardians of the Galaxy,
yeah,
they have that. But like, I mean, again, I think they do. The Guardians of the Galaxy does it the best out of all of Marvel
I
when it
agree
comes
because
to
it's
that. Because I
actually
mean,
funny.
yeah, because we actually like to see that.
Yeah,
But again, does it add anything to the plot? No, no, it doesn't. Seeing Drax do dumb shit does not add anything. But
him
it's
trying to
funny.
lie on the couch.
Yeah, it's funny. It's so. But yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying with that. And this movie
Like
adds.
every why that you could ask to this movie, it has an answer for it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So there's
It's
really no loose threads.
yeah. What's next?
I think that that kind of covers that part. So the next we have genre attempt slash tone. So um, just talking about, I guess, the style of movie, how dark it got, how comedic it was. Was there anything that jumped out at you about the tone here? I have a little bit to say on this.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Say yours, and I'll touch upon it then.
Yeah, so I think that this movie does a really great job at doing kind of again what we were just talking about, what a lot of other Marvel movies aren't great at doing, which is balancing comedy and serious drama. And it's weird saying that in an animated movie because why I feel more in this movie than I
Dude,
feel
I don't.
in
The
pretty
animated
much
movies
every
nowadays, right
Marvel
now,
movie not named Guardians is
tell you
wild
this,
to me.
this and Puss in Boots for me right now is like I'm like, dude, it's insane that I'm feeling this way about these kind of
Right.
movies.
Because it's like it's so like it's just odd because I mean we've talked about it. We mainly just touched on the bulk of it with how the themes of it and what it's portraying. It's a bunch of dark shit. It's a bunch of tough real life shit,
It's
and it makes
life,
you feel
yeah,
those things. But this movie is still goofy as shit
yeah.
constantly, and it works. There's never a joke that takes you out of feelings. Because they just the pacing and timing. It's like I said earlier, tempo again is just so on point. They don't miss a beat.
Yeah, I feel like it's like if you think about it, it's it's like if you were actually there with them in the sense of you're on a journey doing these things, right? So it's like if you're Miles and you're you know Peter, whatever, fucking the other guy. I want to say Michael, but you know what I'm talking
Peter
about when I say
Parker.
that. Yeah. When you like go on a journey to like the science lab or anything like that, and there's gonna be those moments through the time you're going there where you're gonna make a joke or two to one another, and we're just now there for those moments as well, instead of just trying to find time to find a place to add a joke instead of just kind of
Right.
it feeling like it's just a natural thing that's happening.
And
Uh,
they seem to know when to hold back, when to restrain. For instance,
mhm.
like after, Miles's uncle dies, like there's not really a joke in there for another little bit. Like they do a really good
No,
job of not breaking the drama. Like when something dark happens, they let the characters feel those things without breaking it up with just awkward, out of place one-liners like again Marvel is accustomed to. That just kind of
hmm
takes you out of it. So I do think that that's something that needs to be promoted because that's something that is often not nailed. So
yeah, because I think I like with that. I think Marvel did really well with this last one. I mean, again, it's had its moments within it with Guardians
yeah,
3,
it excels at
but
this
it
too,
got
by the way.
serious.
Yeah, and you feel it despite how much
Yeah,
funny jokes are in it. I
like
agree.
really like just the even just the part of the animals when of raccoon kind of getting his upbringing
Oh
is
my god,
very like that's
whole
such a very
sky, the whole
depressing fucking
sky
time.
thing. Oh my god.
Yeah, like everything about that, like just I would love to see just a movie of young raccoon and that whole thing. Like I would have seen all that, but like that just right there is so serious and like it's so sad to watch them like
Yeah,
have so much like
they
in.
fucking nailed that. Like the Rocket's
They did that very
backstory.
well.
We'll definitely we'll get to Guardians.
Yeah.
We're obviously we'd have to do 1 and 2 first, but we'll get there when that time comes. So yeah, I guess double thumbs up for both of us. I think we both agree. It's a little bit. It's not. I wouldn't. It's not tonally inconsistent. It definitely varies in tone, but it's effective and pretty much all of
Hmm.
it. In fact, I also just want to say that I think that most of the jokes are pretty good. I think they're all pretty funny. They're seamless. It doesn't. A lot of movies, like, I'm not trying to sound like such like a fucking cynical dick, but like I'm so used to movies just having jokes that I can't laugh at because I feel like it's the
Yeah.
writers telling a joke to me and not like characters talking. But
Yeah. It's
it's
like
so seamless in this that it's just like, and a lot of times just quick and witty, which is
yeah,
the
it's like
humor
even
I'm typically accustomed to.
when like Miles first enters the school, and he's like he says the lines like he's like, "Oh my God, we're in the same, we're like pretty much wearing the same top." Like I don't, it's
Oh
like
yeah,
yeah,
it's just
everyone
everybody
is,
that's in a
bro.
uniform. Yeah, yeah, it
I'm
does.
like,
It's
bro.
got,
It's, like it's not, it wasn't that funny what he said, but it's just it's like, bro,
but
like that. I
but it also doesn't put enough emphasis on it. Like that's what it's the
yeah,
delivery of the jokes. Like that's what it
it was
is.
because he was already hitting one liners. He was just kind of like just trying to get a feel for everyone, and then like he's like, "Fuck it, hey, bro, look at this, we're wearing the same." I'm like, okay, man.
There is some
It's like there,
secondhand embarrassment involved in the beginning for sure,
mm,
especially with his dad in the cop car. It's like, oh my god,
yeah,
this is like my worst nightmare. Um, so yeah, good thumbs up from both of us on the comedy end, the drama end.
yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
animation and art direction. I mean, shit.
I don't even.
Yeah, I was about to
Wow.
say, what can you say? Because this, we've already talked about the how this movie has influenced movies to follow it and the animation style, and it's. I think that this is the best. This is not my favorite comic book based movie of all time, but I think that this is the best comic book adaptation to a movie in terms of accuracy and quality to a comic book. Because like I love Dark Knight. It's probably my favorite comic book based movie, but The Dark Knight does not come across as a comic book movie. It's just a
No,
movie.
I always tell people like you don't even have to know anything about really Batman or
Yeah,
anything like
it's
that,
just a
and you'd
movie.
still enjoy it.
It's a straight up crime
Yeah,
thriller. Like
yeah.
it's not wacky enough. It's like this, and obviously I think it being animated helps obviously a great deal because it's much more accurate to comics and how they're obviously drawn. But the style here really cannot be spoken about enough. I talked about it earlier in the notes section, but the mix of CG and hand drawn animation is done so flawlessly. The effects that are going on, the spider sense, the way that you can see it, the visual cues, the comic, when they take and they have like the three vertical pages when they're going through the backstories, and it's just like the
Hmm.
overall the comic bubbles. It's like they encompass the love of comic books so
I
much while still delivering a
yeah, I wrote down
visually mind-blowing film. Like this is seriously like, not even to exaggerate here, like this is hands down top 5 best looking animated movies from an artistic direction ever. Hands down.
hands down. Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's that good. Like it is all time good.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I just like for one like thing like I think they paid a lot of attention to details like actually showing like they looked like they just put their love into this movie like
Yes.
even like the small things of like they put up on the screen with the clickety clackety is what they wrote down when he was typing it on the keyboard when they went to the science lab. I just thought it was like it's a good touch of just them like that's what you would read out in a comic book is you
And,
see the character
right.
typing on a keyboard and you see clickety clackety just like
Or
like stuff like that.
when Kingpin, when you're learning his backstory and he's clicking the pen and you see like the memories, and the memories, like the scene flips
Yeah.
or the page flips every time he clicks the pen. It's like, dude, you used a perfect word. I'm glad you said this because this is something I thought about after I watched it. But I was like, you said the word love letter. And I'm like, fact that they managed to make something that is not only a love letter to animation, because
Mhm.
it is 100% a love letter to animation, and almost a celebration of how far animation has come in, obviously, since the pre-Disney days. And it's also a love letter to Spider-Man, which is a hard thing to nail, a hard thing to do. Is such a beloved character that means so much to so many people and has so many, you know, relatable themes. That's why Spider-Man is, I think, the most relatable superheroes, because he has everyday problems, and
Mm.
it's not necessarily they take a different angle than like Raimi's trilogy, for instance, which I think hones in a lot more on Peter's struggle at balancing how to be a regular human being and to work and to do these things and to be in college and this and that, but also be
Hmm.
Spider-Man and can't keep a girlfriend because he has Spider-Man thing, and like he really struggles with that balance. And this
Hey,
it's much more ethereal and what's the word, I guess, existential in the exploration. It's not as in your face, I guess, is in that way as the Raimi's movies are, um but a love letter to
yeah.
Spider-Man, a love letter to animation, and a love letter, honestly, to comic books in
Hmm.
general. And it manages to be one of the best in all three camps, right?
Hmm.
It's one of the best Spider-Man media of anything ever created. It's one of the best animated movies ever created. And
Yep.
like I said, in terms of being a comic book movie, and if we're looking at it through that lens, I think it might just be the best representation of it, period.
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean,
the
my
fact
what
that it
I'm
accomplishes all this is just it's actually wild.
Yeah, I was gonna say like one of my things about this movie is like, but I just want to consider it being it is just art. Like I think it's just art
Exactly.
in a nutshell. Of it just literally there's so many things you can interpret yourself if you want to that the movie will allow you to do. Like just said, the leap of faith scene or anything within the movie that you see. Like even just like really the expectation drawing that he does on the wall is that's a tough drawing that he made for real. Like just the black silhouette of someone standing in front of the expectation
Yeah,
sign. I
yeah.
think that's an
I think it's a
amazing piece of
wallpaper
art that they
too.
put.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. But like within the whole movie is like I think you can interpret a lot of things, and that's what you do with art. And yeah, the movie again, art obviously art when it comes to just animation style as well. But
I wonder what you think of when you hear this. You just kind of proc something in my mind, but I think that there's certain, and I think this goes from all media. You said it about a Lil Yachty album, and I think that this was something that kind of stuck with me because I think you're right. And you said that you were like, I don't know if I can give this a number. This is just art. And what that
mm,
that's kind of stuck with me because I think there's a lot of times, whether I'm watching something truly amazing or playing a game that's truly one of the best, or an album, or whatever it is, where it's like the critic part in my brain at a certain point just turns off, because it's
yeah,
like I'm no longer here to critique this. I'm here to experience this art that clearly has so much love and care and passion. Like I feel like I'm watching someone's love letter.
yeah,
And something that you can tell, like, all these people really put their hearts and souls into it, and you can tell believed in it. And that to me is like, once you breach that point, like, putting a number on it, regardless of whether that number is an 8, a 9, or a 10, is almost disrespectful, because it's like
yeah.
it goes up. This movie is much more than a number, you know. Like it's hard to really pin this movie down, or honestly, and I feel that way in general. Like I think it's hard to kind of narrow anything down to a number, but this truly does breach that gap. What you were saying when you listened to that Lil Yachty album for the first time, which is like you can't even look at it critically. You just have to almost applaud it and praise it and be like this.
Yeah.
So like this podcast has turned much more into an appreciation video than a critique video. But for movies that deserve it, I think that's what they should be. I don't think there's really a reason to go in and start nitpicking this, because it's like everything that's great about it so far overblows everything, every little issue that I think anybody could really have with it.
Hmm.
And I really respect that, and I'm glad that you said that about the Yachty album, because it really did kind of stick with me and changed a little bit on how I try to view media. So, and I think this movie is a kind of an example of that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to throw that out there.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, and then I guess we'll touch on the music, and then we'll get into the reviews we have, and then our overall thoughts. And then we'll call
Okay.
it a day. But I spoke my piece a little bit about how some of the really the only issue I have with this movie is some very specific music placements and specific points. But overall, though,
It all
outside of
works to
those
me.
two,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think it's really effective. I've talked a couple times about the What's Up Danger. I don't really need to reiterate on that. But also,
Mm.
I think the score here is really good. You mentioned the Prowler theme. I think a lot of the scoring, especially in the ends, is quite good and quite. I always say like the best scores kind of almost make you forget they're there. And I think that this is kind of an example of that. Um, it's like everything else is here. It's calculated, and even some of the music choices that I don't like, I still think are calculated. I don't think they're necessarily shoehorned in or forced. They just don't work for me particularly, or I would have preferred maybe a different choice. But I don't think that goes to say that it's bad by any stretch. I just think it dwindles the artistic integrity a little bit when everything else is so one of a kind, unique, and a kind
Okay,
of a piece of its own, bringing something that's so popular from the mainstream and to hear it in it, it just kind of breaks the immersion a little bit for me. So that's my only critique, and I can't really even put my finger on why necessarily. I just do feel that way, and obviously I
I
don't want
got
to
you.
just pretend to like things I don't. But that, again, that's such a nitpicky thing in an otherwise outstanding movie. And honestly, for the most part, the music in this is great. Do you have anything? We've talked about the music kind of already throughout this, but is there anything that you want to add before we get into our
Yeah,
reviews? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say like the because we talked about the score and whatnot already, but we didn't talk about two scenes that I said like when it comes to them, it sounds like they everything is a purpose in this movie,
Hmm.
and even to the score where there's been scenes where like so the beginning of the movie is the one I want to talk about where he's talking to his mother, which is you know she's Hispanic, and then after when he's starting to walk towards the school or he's starting to walk for school, they play like a Latin descended song
Yes.
after that, and it's like okay,
Briefly, right? Right
like
before he gets like ran over by the car or whatever, or like
yeah,
yeah,
pretty
sees his
much,
mom.
yeah, and but it's a you know it's a right you know to his, like you know homage for towards like his mother in that sense.
Right.
And then they do the same exact thing when he's about to go see his uncle, and I think they play an Ice Cube song, I believe. I forget which one it is, but they play a song that you know more hip hop, more of that, and then that kind of cultured realm of you know when he's about to meet his uncle. Uh, and I just thought about it too. The third one is the I don't it's not really I don't really know the genre of it as much, but it's when he shocks Peter B. Parker and then they're flying through the city, or I guess I don't know what
Oh
the hell they're
yeah, yeah,
doing.
yeah, yeah.
But it's like a little it's but there's a part where it's like a little drummel like a drummer type thing when he's like doing like a corkscrew spiral back down towards the to the ground, but and like it starts to like pick up pace as the thing starts to fall down
Oh,
and all
okay.
that
I
kind
know,
of
I know
stuff.
what you're. I was a little confused at first, but now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You talking okay, yeah. But like you know, it has a snowman on his head.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Like I think that those three right there kind of show how much they like thought about what they were gonna put in those spots, and they do that throughout the whole movie. Just the ones that you obviously already know because they're especially the ones that are on the soundtrack and stuff like that. You obviously know, but those are ones that people may not even like hear or think about as much on a deeper level if you just you know are just
At face
enjoying the
value,
movie.
right? I think
So.
too. I think it's worth to bring up. You kind of reminded me to say this, but also the sound design in this movie is great and very
Oh yeah.
calculated, like the rest of the movie. Like I said,
Like the talk
everything
about
really
like the
comes together.
glitchy type sound it
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sometimes. Okay.
And even in
Yeah.
like the sounds in combat, and it's
Hmm.
very like what you'd want it to be in this kind of movie.
Yeah.
It plays a part of being kind of what you imagine a comic book would sound like, kind of, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I yeah, I got what you're saying.
But with that, we can get into to I guess we'll do our reviews first. We each you brought two this time. I have
You have
basically
three?
two, but three. I mean, it's just like one of them's a sentence. But um,
Alright.
so we'll read those off, talk about them, and then we'll get into overall thoughts and all of this.
Alright.
And I guess we can talk about where we'd rank it among the Spider-Man movies. Although we still need to do the other Spider-Man movies as well at some point, but we'll
True.
get there. All right,
We do.
hit me with your review,
Let's
my friend.
which one? You want the good one or the bad one? Because that's
Give me the good one first.
okay. So good one made back in well actually very recent, 2023. It's back in May 15th. So you know, man decided to put it on now. But it goes by Isaac P. Says one of the best animated movies of all time. Also one of the most revolutionary. The animation style is unique and incredible, and the character development is well written. Totally makes up for the Emoji Movie, which was released the previous year by the same studio.
Which is fucking
So
outrageous.
yeah, 1 year turnaround for those
Yes.
is a bit insane. But yeah, but yeah, that's kind of that one.
Well
So
said. Definitely condensed,
yeah,
but agreeable. I mean,
yeah, I couldn't find one that really dove into
Nuance.
what we've been
Right.
fucking saying this whole time. I couldn't find one that talked about like the scene for one, like even just
Which I
like
don't even know how you
the
can talk or review that movie without talking about that scene. It's like one of those moments in games that like everyone talks about, where it's like when you get to
yeah.
that point,
It's
but
like
it's
there's
like
there's so many things I was waiting for someone to talk about, expectations or just something of like a theme. And I mean, it's just most people are really just talking about the animation style and how it is revolutionary and what it does very well. Um, but yeah, it's like there's not no one really went into detail that I saw unless you found some. But yeah,
gotcha, gotcha. All right, so I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start with a. It gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Now I wanted to read this off because I think that this is it's interesting in a way, and also because I think I was just kind of brought in by the fact that somebody gave this movie a 3 out of 5. Is
three
that
out
I
of
feel
five.
like it's either like it's anywhere from a 4 to 5 stars, or it's like a half a star and you're trolling, and there really is not much of it in between. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to read this off and get your take here, but here we go. I've recently been admonished for the way I dismiss a lot of Hollywood mainstream cinema made since the 1980s, the way I write off classics such as Back to the Future as an infantile, which is fucking outrageous. But anyway, the case is that if I dismiss a lot of 1980s classic as infantile, that means I'm dismissing the taste of those who love them as infantile. This, of course, is true. If you think Back to the Future is a great film, then I think you are being an infantile. Again, that's wrong. This
He loves
doesn't
using
mean,
that
however,
word.
that I is he reviewing Back to the Future? Or... Anyway,
Yeah.
this doesn't mean, however, that I think everything about you is an infantile. Just your taste in films, your taste in big Hollywood movies that you watch as a kid and should now have more objective response to, but are trapped in a bouncy bouncy castle of nostalgia. I want to quickly jump in here and just add that I'm 22 years old and have no experience with Back to the Future until I was like 17, like 5 years ago, and I
Mm.
just genuinely one of my all-time favorite movies. So I no, there is no nostalgia there either. It can't be. So I just wanted to anyway. I guess this person is calling me infantile. Um, I
It sounds
feel
like you. I mean, he said it eight
right.
times.
He
That's
did. He
it.
called me an infantile many different times for liking Back to the Future, and I don't know why that's relevant to Spider Verse. We're about to find out. I feel much the same about superhero films. Shocker. Here's a much admired superhero animation that has won much critical praise and many awards, but part of me wants to say, quote unquote, but it's only a fucking Spider Man cartoon. Okay, it isn't a cartoon, but when you are frothing at the mouth with despair and anger, the difference between animation techniques means zilch. And to be honest, I didn't respond with despair and anger Spider Man Into the Spider Verse, despite its clunky title. It's quite fun, quite amusing. There are worse ways to waste 117 minutes. There's a fun central character, Miles Morales, is a teenager who gets bitten by the radioactive spider and starts to undergo changes. There's fun comedy in the way he has to come to terms with the changes to his body. He is also an outsider at a new school, meets Gwen Stacy in a class meeting. He just says cute, in a class meeting, cute. Okay. This promises an emotional center, and I, I presume she was going to become an important character. But if you know the stories, I presume you were ahead of me and knew she wasn't at all that she seemed. And then there's a big superhero story: Kingpin up to no good, threatening the ability of the universe and making passages to parallel universes, in parentheses or Spider Verses, as well as trying to do in Spider-Man. And in all comes all the other Spider-Man characters, but only Peter B. Parker and Gwen have any real life to them. The others might get more force if you know the stories and they arrive with their backstories, but that was beyond me. I just saw some dopey joke characters, and then in parentheses, and the promised teen romance with Gwen comes to a dead end. But there's, which I don't think is a bad thing, but there's
Can you hold on
stuff,
real quick?
yeah.
Where are you getting these long ass fucking
This is
reviews?
from Rate Your Music, this one specifically. Not
Okay.
too much left. But there is stuff about families. Kingpin is motivated by the loss of his wife and daughter, which he blames on Spider-Man. Miles has issues with his overconcerned father and his relaxed uncle, who turns out to be more than we think. And of course, Miles has to find his skills as a spider person. It's all part of growing
Spider
up.
person.
Overall, the visual style is that of the big Hollywood action movie. Swift cuts between often spectacular but simple shots. But does Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse also draw on the graphic style of comic and the books? Question mark. That's a genuine question. I don't know enough about the books and comics to even guess at the answer. I think context clues can honestly be used to answer that. But anyway, if so, it might be doing something vastly more interesting than I'm aware of, in parentheses, but I like the fight words that interrupt the images. It reminded me of 1960s Batman. Hold on. I'm about to rip this guy a new one in a second. In the end, I thought Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was quite fun, as As is typical of big Hollywood action movies, it was stronger at humor and pace and emotion. I don't. That's why. Maybe it would be unfair to call it infantile. It is a fun movie for 14-year-olds. Now, hold on.
Wow.
Before we go off on what the fuck I just read out, let me just cancel Mister. Who said this? One think. This RYM user. Okay, because he makes this whole first paragraph, which I still don't understand what had to do with anything about Back to the Future and about if you think it's a great film, you're infantile. He then goes on later in the same review and starts praising 1960s Batman. Look, Adam West's Batman is like charming to watch today, but it is so fucking over the top outdated that if you're really
Oh,
gonna sit here and call everyone an infantile for liking Back to the Future because of nostalgia and then boast up 1960s Batman in the same fucking review is outrageous. So there's thing number one. Thing number two, I didn't have too much of an issue with this until he got because at first it started to read like okay he's just not really that into this style of movie fine,
yeah, that's what it
and
sounded
then
like,
and
superhero
then he
movies and
he
stuff
had the
like that.
line at the end where he says, as is typical of big Hollywood action movies, it was stronger at humor and pace than emotion. Now, I'm not saying the movie isn't maybe even the strongest at humor and pace, but the emotion in the movie to me is so obviously right there with those elements. So I'm wondering, and then he kind of calls it off at the end by calling it a movie for 14-year-olds, but the
Oof,
themes and
that
underlying messages of
wild.
this movie, I think a lot of which can go right over a lot of 14-year-olds' heads.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think
what
there's
that's my
plenty
thing
of
with.
in here for adults, so I'm
Yeah,
interested. What do you think of
that was one of the
this
biggest,
review?
like, what the fucks are you talking about in that situation? It's like, for 14-year-olds, they don't, like, they're not really thinking of, I mean, again, unless you're a very, like, you understand things pretty well at that age, it's like, you're not gonna really pick up on those key themes of how someone would feel at that moment. And like it's more helps if you've been 14 and
Right.
then now you're living at the age you are now and you go back and realize, oh, I did that at one point. I felt that same pressure at that age around that time. It's hard to do what Miles is doing, and now he's also gonna have to do this while he's also being fucking Spider-Man. Um, so
And
like,
Peter B.
and
Parker and his whole story is very adult. I mean, he's kind
yeah,
of a, you know,
especially yeah, I was about to say like the whole
depressed.
divorced,
Yeah.
doesn't want kids. He feels like he's not ready. A lot of adults go through that every day, and that breaks up a lot of relationships because of those things.
And then
Um,
like losing his, I mean, and then you get into the facet of this movie deals a lot with loss, and I think most people experience loss much later in life.
or
I'm assuming
it
so.
goes it goes it goes into the theme. I think family is one too,
Yeah.
and I don't know if at a younger age you're not really,
Fully.
you love your family,
You're
but you
not fully
don't
understanding
appreciate.
the dad of Miles, or
Yeah.
right?
Or
Yeah.
just even just appreciating family on that level of what, now after that movie, like, you understand
You don't have enough to
what
look
your
back on.
dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if I saw that review, like, okay, I can understand it to a little bit in this movie, but like if I saw that review for like Puss in Boots, that's where I'd be like, all right, bro,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
you're actually hitting a whole different point. Like that, if there's no shot
I'd
that
argue
you're
that movie's
saying that.
straight up made for adults.
Yeah, like that's my thing is like you're not telling me about that movie in particular, but for Spider-Verse, if you're a like 15, 16-year-old kid going into that movie like we were at the time of 17, you're gonna sit there and be like, yeah, I can feel for Miles as well. But I still don't think that means you can't feel for him at the same time when you're like in your 20s,
Oh
30s,
yeah.
if
If
at
not
any
more
age.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I have to say about that. But what was the word you like to use? Infantile?
Yeah. People that like Back to the Future are
Like that's
infantile,
just
but don't fuck with his Adam West Batman movie in
hey,
1960. After he goes on a
yeah,
whole plunge about people or him being mad about nostalgia. I don't get it. Uh,
you're either a baby or a young child if you like this movie, even though you said 14 or like, whatever. It's like I don't know. Infantile is a wild word to use in that situation. Ugh. Yeah, that's a great one. That was a good one. Um, I was gonna. So I told you this one. You already heard it.
mhm.
If you want me to tell them the
Yeah.
same one that I. Because it is wild that this person decided to say this in a review. But so May 10th, 2023, Kieran C. Oh, give the movie 5 out of 5, right? So nothing too crazy. Well, so this film is a genuine masterpiece. This is not one of my just two, so I guess I have three as well at this point. I just threw this one in here last minute because I had to
Perfect.
find it. So this film is a genuine masterpiece. The art style changed the game for animated films forever, right? So it's pretty good so far. Soundtrack used musical concepts and themes that cinema has never seen before. The story inspired people. Oh yeah, there we go. So this is where the review kind of goes into a route where I was not expecting the review to go. But I don't think this person meant this in any ill-hearted way. But they then go to say the story inspired people of all races and ethnic groups and backgrounds to be better. Just just better. Not better at anything, just be better.
I just love.
So
I said this already, but I'm just gonna reiterate. I just love how, based off of that line alone, you know he's white. You know for a
I mean,
fact he is white.
there's no it totally reminded me of the Spider-Man Miles Morales game review where the guy's literally like
Oh, the
you can feel
swagger of
the
a black
yeah
man.
the
Oh
black
my
yeah,
god,
I'm like that's exactly what I
that's a
felt reading that.
wild thing to say, especially considering he wasn't and wouldn't understand that. But anyway,
Yeah, it's like yeah, so I'll continue. So the story inspired people of all races, ethnic groups and backgrounds to be better, and the characters are some of the most charming um and affable people to grace the big screen. But yeah, that was
bunch of
that just
very exaggeratory words there, and then a bit of racial undertone that I don't think was intended. But
yeah, I don't think he's like he's just I love that this movie's making them better people.
there's yeah.
They're
You need
gonna
to
be
watch
so
Spider
good.
Verse so you can just get better.
Yeah, just get better. It's like you
I
as
want
a
to know
person, you need
exactly
to be better.
how watching this movie is making the minorities better.
I man, just I don't I I have
So
no
is it only
idea what he
minorities
meant.
that can get better? Like, do white
I
people not? Do we don't
I
do? Do
don't
we get better watching Spider? Or do we not have to get better? Because
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what's going
Personally,
on.
it's just it was funny. That's all I
I
have to
wish
say
people
about
would
that.
watch how they say things. You just maybe just do a quick
You had to
proofread.
type that. You had to type the
Then
story
look it
inspired
over. You
people
said,
of
yeah, that's the one.
it inspires all people, all races. Yeah. Wait, it story inspired people of all races, ethnic groups, and backgrounds to be
Oh,
better. It's like I don't
okay.
understand. Okay. So I'll do my bad one now, I
Okay.
guess. So
Wait, do you want me? Wait, do you want me to just add? Cause I have three. So then I'll have one
oh
for you.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
This is stupid. It's literally not even a sentence. Julius Caesar gives it a half a star into the spider shit. That's it. That's the review.
Wait, take it.
Into the spider shit. One and a
Ah,
half star. Julius
one and a
Caesar.
half. Julius Caesar wrote that one.
That's
He
the
came
only
back from the
reason I
dead.
brought this up is because it says watched by Julius Caesar. Half a star, and his fucking picture is the statue of Julius Caesar. Oh my god. All right, you can go into to yours now.
Okay. So the last one I have. So it's again, I couldn't really find any like bad reviews that like someone actually meant. Uh, but like it is still wild. So Alex R back in April 9th of 2023. Said it's a short one because I couldn't again I cannot find any long ones like that. I got to go find other places. Uh, he said never understood the obsession with this movie. Found it quite boring, and the animation gave me a headache. My son asked me to leave halfway through. Couldn't be bothered to finish it. I love Spider-Man, but this did not live up to the hype at all.
Mm. So we got the
Hmm.
classic case of I didn't even finish it, but I'm gonna tell you it's bad, even though I don't know because I didn't really watch it. Brandon,
I mean,
if you watched half a movie, did you watch the movie?
even if I watched half of this movie, I wouldn't say it was bad.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like in general, like if you watch
Yeah,
half a
yeah,
movie and somebody's like asks you, "Have you seen this movie?" You're like, "Yeah, I've seen it," even though you only
I would
watched
tell
half of
you.
it.
Yeah, I watched half of it. I couldn't
Exactly,
finish it
because you
though.
can't review something you've seen half of. It's like
No,
the whole thing of journalists getting canceled because it's like they'll have somebody review a game and then somebody will find their profile and then pull up their trophies or whatever they played it on and then realize they don't even have the achievement for beating the game and it's like, dude, why? What are we doing? What are we doing?
yeah.
You got to complete
I
it to
mean,
review it. If you don't
he
complete it,
said
no one gives a fuck about your opinion.
he said his son asked him to leave halfway through, and then he said he
But he's
couldn't be
just he
bothered
didn't
to
even
finish it.
clearly he didn't even
So,
care in the first place. Because if you go into a movie with the shitty mindset of like, oh my god, like I
well, he
don't
said the
want to,
animation gave him a headache. So
that's
you
wild.
could be.
Not a very artistic fellow this man is. Probably
He
shouldn't be
wants.
reviewing
I think he
movies.
likes the noir Batman a lot. Probably does. He's like, oh yeah, there's
Yeah,
my.
for sure. That's his speed.
That's.
He likes two movies, Batman and Fight Club.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, I thought that was funny, and that's the only one I could find. Like, I actually had like, I felt like someone actually said something that was negative on the movie without being a troll.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
good job, Alex R, for finding something that you couldn't, that you couldn't
Yes,
find something
had
bad
it
with this
interesting
movie.
animation. Um, Rich
You find it boring too.
1206.
So weird.
Rich 1206 gave it 4 out of 5 stars. He said, "This is the closest I've seen a movie that looks like a comic book on screen. We see and hear the thoughts of the characters while also seeing the storyboard move across the screen. There are multiple Spider-Men, men, women, pigs, question mark, in this movie, and I feel like it's sort of poking fun at the different Spider-Man franchises but different actors playing the character. From Tobey Maguire to Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland, all of those movies had Spider-Man with different origin stories that are similar but different, like the different Spider people in this movie. This origin story focuses on a teenager who witnesses the death of Peter Parker while also dealing with the effects of the fateful spider bite. Soon after Parker's death, we begin to meet the new Spider-Man slash or in parentheses people who are brought to this universe to stop the Kingpin from doing more damage to the multiverse. This is unique, creative, and funny. It's an origin story with many origin stories that is poking fun of origin stories, and the animation is top notch, with all the fast paced action and bright colors throughout. But like a lot of superhero movies, it's about taking that leap of faith and becoming something you never thought you were capable of becoming. It's about putting aside your fears and fulfilling your fate as a hero when people are in need, an original take on a familiar story. I wanted to read this one because I like that he brought up in here, and we touched on it a little bit, maybe not enough, but just kind of the almost satirical kind of spin on the origin story and the self-acknowledgement and the self-awareness that this movie possesses, and then he kind of ends it with an original take on a familiar story, which is so
Mm,
true because again, it's like a lot of these things are things that we've kind of seen, but they're done so differently and so unpredictably. But they're still
yeah,
those cliches. They're just like, yeah, what if we did this, but like made it
better.
self-aware and like really fucking cool. So yeah,
That's true. Yeah,
I like that he brought that up. So definitely
and
good
we
good job,
talked about
Rich.
it a
We
decent
did,
bit. I think
we
we
did.
did at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely at least brought it up. But with that, this is kind of where we go into like our overall like on a scale on a I guess if you want to get into or you want to hear where it ranks for me in my
Hmm.
Spider-Man movies. Um,
You can go ahead, go first. That's fine.
yeah, so I think it's hard because this is one of those cases where
It's very different.
it's not only is it very different, but I think when I look at so in my eyes, it's different for everybody. In my eyes, there's three Spider-Man movies that have like the crown. Like these are the cream of the crop, if you will, for Spider-Man movies, right? Spider-Man 1, Sam Raimi.
Yep.
Spider-Man
Yeah.
2, Sam Raimi.
Yep.
Into the Spider-Verse. This one, of course. Now,
Yep.
ranking them is tough because I mean, I know I slightly like I love Spider-Man 1 to death. I slightly like 2 more. So I kind of know where that falls. Where Into the Spider-Verse falls in this mix is very difficult to narrow down. I'm only saying this, and this could be partly nostalgia, maybe, but I still kind of would fight back a little bit. But I think that this is the second best Spider-Man movie behind Spider-Man 2. So
I'll take that.
I put it above Spider-Man 1, but below Spider-Man 2. And
Yeah,
it's
I'll take
hard because
that.
it's like there's no reason like why I'm putting this above the other because they're both I think they're both kind of perfect in what they're doing and there's nothing I'd really change about either. It just comes down to I think the fact that I relate a little bit more to Spider-Man 2 and it just does a little bit more for me personally because of that movie is a lot more, and obviously this is an animated movie that isn't really for kids, but is partially catered towards kids. While Spider-Man 2 is much more mature and dark
Yeah,
and
wait. Which one does he deal with him about to propose and she breaks up with him. Is that two or is that
That's
three?
three.
Is that three?
Three, yeah, because that's the one where she has a different boyfriend.
Because I mean, like that. I'm telling you that Toby went through some shit.
Yeah, no, Toby, dude, especially dude, Spider-Man 2, like Toby gets fucked constantly. Like it's just, but to me, it's like that's why I think that story is so like that. The only reason I think I can't put Into the Spider-Verse at number one, because I think they're both basically 10 out of 10 movies. The only reason I'm holding Spider-Man 2 higher is because I think Spider-Man 2 is like the ultimate Spider-Man movie in the sense that it captures what the character the essence of the character the best. And what I mean by that is in Spider-Man 2, Toby is constantly getting and I say Toby, but
Yeah, I know
Peter.
what you mean.
Peter's getting just completely shit on the entire movie. Like nothing's going right for him. He's school's fucking him up. He misses MJ's play. That relationship's falling apart because of him. There's just everything's falling. He loses his job at the pizza parlor. So
Pizza time.
he's going through yeah, he's going through all of this and the whole essence of the Spider-Man character is that sacrifice and it's that doing the right thing regardless of the circumstances. And a lot of Spider-Man movies have played with that, even this one, but
It
none
captivates
really
them
make you
better.
feel the loss and the like holy shit this guy can't catch a break like Spider-Man 2
Uh,
does, but it makes that push and when he still pushes through all that and he still does the right thing and even through messing up and I think that movie show and again it's a much longer movie it has a movie before it that already establishes a lot so it's hard to really compare them but
That's why I'm like I said.
the
When it comes
related
to
I think
this,
again it's just it comes down to the stakes in Spider-Man 2 are just this eclipse this because of the type of movie I think that it is, obviously I think that has a part to do with the time period that it came out as well. And so to
mm,
me, that movie just has a slight edge because I can't. It'd be harder for me to say that Spider-Man 2 is not the best Spider-Man movie than it is for me to say Into the Spider-Verse is not the best Spider-Man movie, even though both of them are very hard to say because they're both literal masterpieces to me. But
mm,
there you go. There's my reasoning. It's,
yeah,
it's so slight, but I'd give this slight edge to Spider-Man 2 and then
yeah. I
Into the
mean, I
Spider-Verse.
think I'm really, really, really worried on this next Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, they have a lot to live up to for sure.
And it scares me because I'm like I don't want to expect a lot, but I'm gonna expect a lot,
Hey
and
man, it's been 6 years. They've had time with
that's what I'm
this.
saying. It's been a fucking minute. Like I really do hope it's everything that I want it to be. Um, and maybe that because then I would love for that to be now that my favorite. I would always take the next movie to come out to be my favorite movie of all time,
Right.
but because if you can make me get out of the mindset of nostalgia to tell me that you're my favorite movie now, like that takes a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a
'Cause
big yeah.
nostalgia plays a huge
I
part,
mean,
and if you can
people have to
break nostalgia,
understand and that's this movie for me. I mean, Spider-Man 1, like I would probably rank this above that. And like Spider-Man 1 holds
I
huge
love
nostalgia value for me.
yeah.
Huge.
Like
So
yeah, I love Spider-Man 1 for nostalgia factors too. Like it's
so
but
that's
I have
that's a
this
great point. And this movie does do
yeah.
that.
I said I have the same top three as you as well. Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, and Into the Spider-Verse. They're all in the top three. But I also put Spider-Man 1 at 3 as
Okay.
well. I think that it is a 3 spot.
Yep.
But I just switched my 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I
And
Spider-Man to
that's
the
and that's
Spider-Verse.
completely understandable. Like and that's
Yeah.
crazy cuz see when people say that No Way Home is their favorite Spider-Man movie, it irks me because I feel like it's just kind of disrespecting the whole reason it is even as good as it is.
Yeah. I would ask them. I would ask them. Like, did you see it twice? And if
Yeah,
they said no, I'm like, watch it a second time.
yeah,
Just
I
watch it
agree.
one more time, and then you tell me if it
It's
has the
the
same
best
impact
Spider-Man
as it
movie.
did. Yeah, because
It's
I
like
guarantee you, I was walking out of there saying it was at least a 9 on my first watch, and then I'm walking out of there the second time. I'm like, it's
it's a
not a
7.
9.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a 7.
it's
It's a
it's
good
not.
movie, but it's not it
It's
doesn't break
cool.
it
It's a
anywhere.
Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
It's
Marvel
fun.
movie
It's a
with
good it is a nice little love letter to Spider-Man. But it's just
yeah.
not it's just
Like
not on the level that I think these movies that we're discussing here are at. But
at
my whole point with
all.
that is like I feel like when people say that it irks me because I feel like it's just disrespecting again other movies that even made that movie what it was. But not only that, but also like if somebody were to say that Into like you just did Into the Spider Verse is better than Spider Man 2, I'm like all right. Like I can't even get mad at it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's a masterpiece. Like I can't.
Yeah. The only reason why I would say that too is like I think they're both right there neck and neck as well with the tens, but with this movie, this movie is way more inspirational to the genre of animation than Spider-Man 2 is to just filmmaking in general. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing on Spider-Man 2's aspect, but I have to give props where props is due when it comes to just how revolutionary that Spider-Man or Spider-Man the Spider-Verse actually
I mean,
is.
I'm gonna kind of give a rebuke on that because Spider-Man 2 was very influential. You gotta keep in mind when Spider-Man 2 came out. I mean, shit, Spider-Man 1 that counts for this
I'm
too,
about to say Spider-Man 1
but
counts
like,
for it more than
but
Spider-Man 2, but yeah.
but even then, it's like in that era, like superhero movies were bad.
Yeah.
Like it was surprising to
Spider-Man
everyone
revamped
that
it.
those Spider-Man movies were good because there's like that came at a time where like that the Raimi Spider-Man
What was it,
movies
2001, right?
broke the
Shit
genre.
like that.
Like you owe the entire MCU to those Spider-Man movies. You owe shit, even the Dark Knight trilogy in a way. They're way different. They're nothing alike. But Spider-Man
Yeah.
broke that gap first where it's like comic book movies were no longer just cheesy things that some people had nostalgia for. They were legitimately great movies. And so to me it's like you
2002,
can't
yeah.
I
That's
wouldn't
crazy.
I wouldn't say Spider-Verse is any more or less influential because to be honest, they're both insane like again like peak
Mm,
influence because again to discredit the influence of Spider-Man 1 and 2 simply
no, I'd say again, I think Spider-Man 1 has more of an influence though because but Spider-Man 2 just took the influence of Spider-Man 1 and kept going with it.
I mean Spider-Man 2 was I think the first comic book movie that in my eyes is like a masterpiece. Like this is a 10 out of 10. Like this is not one of the best I mean it's the best superhero movie at that time, but it's definitely one of the best movies, period. And like
Hmm.
that's Spider-Man 2 was the first movie. I mean, I love Spider-Man 1, but Spider-Man 2 was the first one that like it broke the whole like okay, like these are great comic book movies. Like no, this is like one of the
This is
best
just a good,
movies ever. Like
yeah,
so, but again,
pretty good.
we're arguing between. I mean, I think for both of us, like the lines between one and two or two and Spider Verse for me are so thin. It's just a slight edge to
Yeah.
Spider Man Two, just personal preference. But I really don't think there's an objective difference.
Okay.
Cause
I
yeah,
also I would say this too about Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse. I do think out of all the Spider movies, like out of just all of them in general, I think this one has the most rewatchability as well. I think you can rewatch this one a lot more times than you can rewatch any of the other ones. You may disagree with that, just
I
but
could watch Spider Man Three like 3 times in one day,
well,
probably.
Spider-Man 3 is that's a
Spider
you're
Man Three
watching
is
it.
so entertaining.
You're watching it for the wrong reasons though. You're not
See,
watching because it's a good
I
movie.
want to do Spider-Man 3 because I have a nuanced take on Spider-Man 3.
I
I'm
think
not saying it's great. I don't think it's great. But
I think
I
it's
think it does
something all right.
I think it's more than just a bad funny movie to watch. I'll put it like that.
I don't think
But
it's as bad as we proclaim it to
no,
be.
no. And I certainly think that we can at least
I
agree that
still think
it's enjoyable to watch for
I mean
whatever
like I'd still
reasons.
put that over both the Amazing Spider-Man movies
Oh,
at
100
least.
100%. That's probably a hot take too, but I agree. There ain't no shot in hell
Yeah.
I'd put
Yeah, I'm
those two
taking
because
Spider-Man
Spider-Man
3
3
over
at
those
least has
two.
so much more like flavor and character.
Oh,
The
it's
Amazing Spider-Man
the
movies
character is
were just like
insane.
bland. Like
I love Toby being a dick. It is
yeah,
the
oh dude,
most
emo
hilarious
Parker
thing in the
is
world.
fucking amazing, and all the memes. I
Uh,
mean, you can't like yeah,
The memes are great.
the
See, the
Raimi
only one
memes are
so I
iconic.
don't know. I'm trying to think about that where I'd actually put that now when it comes to the Tom Holland ones. Because honestly, I could put it. I could put Spider-Man 3 above
Yeah,
Homecoming if I really wanted to.
I do.
Uh,
People don't like me
yeah,
for it.
I could put it above Homecoming. I don't know if I can put it above Far From Home because I do
I
love
I like Homecoming
Mysterio.
more than Far From Home now. So
You love Homecoming more than Far From Home?
yeah.
Wow. No,
My
I still
change
think
I really lost interest in Far From Home on rewatches. Like I realized how
maybe I'll have to
much it had
rewatch
that
it
I didn't
then.
like. I think what happened for
The
me
Mysterio
was
scene
because
is crazy to me.
that's what fucked me up. Was when I watched it, that scene was like so like I was like, dude, that was so cool that I was like
That's a
so high
really
on
good
it. Like
fucking scene.
that's like I didn't even think about the rest of the movie. I was just like, yo, that scene
Yeah.
was incredible.
I
And
probably
then
have to
I
go back and
watched it
watch it.
and I was like, God, this stupid fucking drone plot. That's what really irked me. I was like, this goddamn like it is so
Yeah.
like unreasonably stupid. And it
I
honestly
yeah.
makes Jake Gyllenhaal's character much worse, and it's nothing to do with him or his performance. It's just
I'm about
like
to say he did a great
it's a
job in the
dumb
movie.
plot
That
device.
It is a lot of things probably shadow my thoughts on Far From Home. But again, that scene and then the end scene credits in Far From Home, and then also Gyllenhaal's villain. All three of those things, I think they did
The
very
one
fucking
thing I'll
well in
give
that
those
movie.
Holland movies, they know how to end.
Yeah,
They really do know how to end. Because you're right, the ending of Far From Home where he gets outed, and then how that goes into No Way Home, and that ending is spectacular. The ending to me is the best part of No Way Home.
yeah.
And
No
I
Way
think
Home.
that's what
I
set
don't
it
give a
above. Like that's why I can't just call it like safe, because that's not a safe ending at all. Like they really like to end it like that after a movie that he already lost a lot, and then to end it with him like basically losing everything was like, damn, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that they took it that far, was like he doesn't even have friends anymore. It's like not just fuck around and not have a girlfriend. He doesn't even have friends. Like
Yeah,
he has
nobody knows
no
him.
one.
And
He has
then they
no.
show
He's
him
literally just
going back
alone.
with Zendaya. Oh my god, yeah, it was truly a great ending. But yeah, damn, we did good today. 2 hours and 20 minutes, our longest
Wait,
one
did you end
yet.
it?
No, I haven't ended it. We're
Oh, I was
still
about to say.
going.
I was like, what? Didn't really do anything. Outro
No,
for it.
no, but I just
I was
wanted
about to say. I
to
felt
note
this one was
that.
gonna be long.
Yeah, but we definitely we longer than the movie. So there you go.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, I
well,
mean, I
it
don't
was
have.
fun. I'm glad to hop back on the horse. So hopefully we can be more consistent with this.
Yeah,
Um,
that's been on me, but
but we can do. I mean, hopefully we can do the second Spider-Verse movie next weekend.
we should be able to.
Cool, cool. So we'll make sure to do that, and then we'll continue on from there. I think after that it'll be your turn to pick something. So we will get there when we get there. But thank you all for listening. If you have come this far, we appreciate it.
We
Brandon, it's
love
been
y'all.
fun.
It's been a
Thank you
great
for
time.
joining. Of course, of course, of course. All right. Until next time.
Adios.
Deuces.